Good evening and welcome to the International FinTech Conference, FinTERACT 2021, presented by FinBlue, a FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI, and ELCOT, adding value through IT. This conference is presented in partnership with STPI-Chennai. Software Technology Parks of India, or STPI, is set up by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, in 1991, with the objective of encouraging, promoting and boosting the software exports from India. STPI maintains internal engineering resources to provide consulting, training and implementation services. Services cover network design, system integration, installation, operation and maintenance of application networks and facilities in varied areas. STPI has played a seminal role in building India's reputation as an IT superpower. Today, software technology parks of India across the country are synonymous with excellent infrastructure and statutory support aimed at furthering growth of information technology in the country. FinBlue is an initiative by STPI at Chennai to help provide resources such as mentoring, technology support and funding for fintech startups. FinBlue offers an integrated program for startups to scale up through its incubation facility for uninhibited, unrestricted financial technology startup growth. The FinBlue Incubation Program includes a premier plug-and-play co-working space for tech startups and offers access to the fintech ecosystem, which comprises of user bankers, financial institutions, mentors, investors, and a platform to support go-to-market strategy. The 6 pillars identified for implementation and operationalization of the FinTech Center for Excellence are understanding buyer needs, international partnerships, funding frameworks, benchmarking products, policy and technology, and mentoring and training frameworks. FinTERACT 2021 is a virtual conference by FinBlue, a FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI, and ELCOT, adding value through IT. Over the next 3 days, we hope to get closer to the ecosystem and bring all stakeholders together to discuss and deliberate about the emergent strategies in the fintech space. Without further ado, it is now time for the inaugural session of FinTERACT 2021. Please join us for this grand opening of this 3-day conference.
Thank you, Yashaswini, for the introduction. It is a proud privilege for me to welcome Shri Ajay Prakash Sahani, Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, Dr. Onkar Rai, Director General, STPI, Thiru Hansraj Verma, Additional Chief Secretary and Secretary IT, Government of Tamil Nadu, Shri Arun Jain, Chairman, Managing Director, Intellect Design and Chief Mentor, FinBlue, Delegate from industry associations, FinBlue partners, and members from media on the occasion of the inauguration of the FinTERACT 2021, a global fintech conference. Before taking proceedings of this inaugural session ahead, may I request all the dignitaries to light the lamps. Thank you, sir. Dignitaries on the virtual dais, ladies and gentlemen, Digital India program initiated by the Government of India in 2015 have laid emphasis on the digital empowerment of the citizen of India for boosting digital economy of the country. And various initiatives.
After 10 minutes.
Pardon? Various initiatives pertaining to citizen-centric services, ease of doing businesses for enterprise, financial inclusion have been taken up in a collaborative environment. Success of the India financial stack, opening of the Jan Aadhaar accounts, Aadhaar identity, and penetration of a smart mobile is the biggest example of the government industry collaboration in the world. This has resulted in creation of trusted identity verification platform, trusted data and data exchange, trusted interoperable and scalable payment system, and trusted consent layer, the four pillars on which digital economy of India is thriving upon. This has also enabled onboarding every citizen of India standing last in the financial value chain in order to contribute to digital economy of our country. All the financial institutions of the world are looking for enhancing their outreach through a technological platform by digital transformation. We have seen historical deployment of the digital platform in all the business in recent times. McKinsey report shows that we have gone 5-year fast forward in digital adoption by consumer and business in a matter of few months. This indicates that the digital economy is front and center in this new time. STPI have taken a lead role in contributing to India's digital push by setting up Center of Excellences in Emerging Technologies, FinBlue, a Center of Excellence in FinTech, approved, funded, and administered by the mighty Government of India in collaboration with Government of Tamil Nadu and all the stakeholders, is one of such initiative by STPI. Besides, 11 other Center of Excellence have been set up elsewhere in the country. FinTERACT 2021, a global fintech conference, is being organized with the objective to reach out to all stakeholders in order to develop a common approach to address business, regulatory, and technical challenges faced by the fintech domain. FinTERACT 2021 is a 3-day conference wherein world fintech leaders are participating. Theme of the conference is Redefine Fintech. All the 6 pillars identified through design thinking model for operationalization of the FinBlue are being discussed extensively during the conference by the speakers. On this note, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Shri Arun Jain, Chairman and Managing Director, Intellect Design, and Chief Mentor, FinBlue, for addressing the inaugural session. Mr. Arun Jain is the founder of the Polaris Group and Chairman and Managing Director of the Intellect Design Arena Limited, the world's first full-spectrum banking and insurance technology products company. Intellect powers over 250 leading global banks and financial institutions with a revenue of INR 1,459 crores and an employee base of over 5,000. Mr. Jain commenced his entrepreneurial journey by setting up Nucleus Software Workshop in 1986, Polaris Software in 1993, Intellect in 2011. As an evangelist of design thinking, his brainchild FinTech 8012, the world's first design center at Chennai dedicated to financial technology, came into being. With a constant drive to better the community around him, he instituted Mission Samriddhi, a social impact enterprise dedicated to holistic human development in India. Ullas Trust, a social impact organization working towards igniting less privileged young minds into realizing their true potential, and Startup Nukkad, a unique initiative for budding entrepreneurs to understand their purpose and nurture and mentor their innovative thinking using 10x model. Mr. Jain has been entrusted with the responsibility of the Chief Mentor of the FinTech Center of Excellence. He has achieved so many accolades: CII Lifetime Achievement Award, Lifetime Achievement Award at Design Thinking Conclave and Awards. He has been recently conferred with the Dronacharya Award in 2019 by TIE. He holds prestigious position in various forums like National Software Product Mission, Software Technology Parks of India, CII, Madras Management of Association, and Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. He is holding a degree in electrical engineer from the Delhi College of Engineering. I request Mr. Arun Jain to address us.
Thank you, Dr. Tyagi, for welcoming the people and organizing this event called FinTERACT with the help of ELCOT, STPI, TIE, and FinBlue partners. I welcome Mr. Ajay Sahani, who has taken his personal time to inaugurate this event to show his commitment to the building this ecosystem of FinTech organizations. Mr. Hansraj Verma, has taken his personal time to inaugurate this event, to support us. So whenever we meet Dr. Hansraj Verma, he has provided that kind of a directions to drive the acceleration of the growth. Dr. Omkar Rai, Director General of STPI, who moved from STPI to digital push, as Dr. Tyagi was mentioning, is a new agenda STPI has undertook, which is a next decade is about digital push and digital agenda for the world. So this new year or new decade, which we are starting, is a digital push. And Dr. Tyagi and other partners of FinBlue, Taurus, IIT Madras, NPCI, PayPal, Yes Bank, Pontiac, STPI-Chennai, NetWest Group, RBS, ICCI Bank, HDFC Bank, BNY Mellon. I think all these institutions are coming together. It shows the power of the ecosystem getting built up. And along with that, the ecosystem in fintech is emerging very, very well. So I see two big opportunities in a fintech world. One is the global 180 countries. So even if you leave US and Europe separately, there are more than 100 countries where India can take a leadership position on technology. Fintech technologies to be there in Africa, South Americas, a lot of CIS countries, Eastern Europe. So a lot of places our entrepreneurs can take the lead in building the fintech ecosystem in those countries. And second is inside India, we have a 1.3 billion people who are there with a 690 districts. So 690 district, if you look at each as a marketplace, the fintech companies have a huge opportunity of getting to this 690 districts of India. And looking each district is a 2 million people, which is size of some of the European countries, which is a size of the few countries. So each district could be marketplaces for our fintech companies. The role of a FinTERACT event, which is being organized with STPI, FinBlue, ELCOT, is, I would say, three things are there for any such partnership. Celebrate what is good happening in the system. Because to building ecosystem, we need to celebrate the best practices, what is happening in the system, whether within India or outside India. Then connect them. So the role of this event is to celebrate and then connect them. And the third element which is there is about catalyzing them. So celebrate, connect, and catalyze are the three key drivers of FinTERACT. And for next 3 days, we want to see how this is shaping up. This is shaping up in connecting the 6 pillars as mentioned by Dr. Tyagi. It's about any ecosystem consists of buyers, a buyer solving certain problem, which is a buyers. Then ecosystem has international practices to be brought in. So we need an international partnership with other ecosystems of the fintech in the world, whether it's Singapore, Australia, UK, we need to bring them together. Third pillar is around funding needs, how the funding is done at a angel funding to the stage 1 funding to stage 2 funding. Then we need to ensure that our products, because it's a financial world, the quality of the product is important, security of the product is important. So we need a benchmarking of those products to be done by independent bodies. And when somebody is selecting those products, that has some ISI mark on those particular products. We don't have ISI mark in software products. We may need some sort of a ISI mark in the product. Then fifth pillar is on policies and technologies. What kind of policies are the buyer policies are there with the new ecosystem coming in? Do we have a same digital buying policy with a public sector bank or government organization of a size of the organization, or the criteria of building a credibility of the organization, or they will look at a benchmarking like CMM level 5 organization or equivalent kind of a benchmarking. And sixth element is around mentoring and training of the entire new players which is coming in. And we have a very healthy mentoring and training system in Tamil Nadu as well as in India. So these 6 pillars, we need to catalyze all the 6 pillars and connect them. First, we connect them and then catalyze them. And FinBlue has started creating those connecting ecosystem, which will be inaugurated today. One of it is a FinBlue sandbox. FinBlue Sandbox will enable us to connect multiplayer in fintech industry to the API systems. And second inauguration, which we are looking for today, is we are launching today. Mr. Ajay will be launching it, is around the marketplace itself, the FinBlue marketplace. So these two are the important element which are driver of catalyzing them. So first is celebrating, second is connecting, and third is catalyzing. And these two places we believe will be the lever of catalyzing the entire ecosystem. And third thing, final thing which I want to say is changing the thinking process of the ecosystem. We can do it is a kind of approach, a Silicon Valley approach versus Eastern Coast US approach or Europe approach. Whether we are cautious or we are aggressive in the marketplace, I think we have a huge opportunity of influencing at least 100 countries in the world to the fintech ecosystem and 690 districts of India. And with that, I welcome all the participants in this conference. And I must thank each person who helped in creating the ecosystem. It's very rare that we have a leader from MIT, leader from state, leader from STPI coming together with TIE as an organization, with partners like NPCIs and IIT Madras as a technology institute, IIT Madras as a technology institution. It's amazing to see that all the levers are coming together, and I must thank everyone for organizing this event. Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving insight about the FinTERACT 2021. And it's as you said, that this is the time for celebrate, connect, and catalyze. And probably all these 3 days, we all will be deliberating, and we will see that how can we celebrate this ecosystem of the fintech which we have created under the FinBlue, and how we can connect with each other, and how we can, in time to come, celebrate our success. So thank you very much, sir, for your address. Now I would like to move on, and I would like to now introduce Thiru Hansraj Verma, Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu, under whose leadership in Tamil Nadu, we are marching ahead for the growth of the IT and ITS industry. He has been a major force behind the success of the FinBlue so far. His contribution is immense as far as the implementation of the Center of Excellence in FinTech is concerned. Shri Hansraj Verma ji is the Additional Chief Secretary, IIT Government of Tamil Nadu. He is currently serving, he's a 1986 batch IS officer of Tamil Nadu cadre. Mr. Verma is a postgraduate in management and has experience of working in departments like environment, forest, labor, planning, geology, mining, and electronics. He has held important portfolios like Chairman and Managing Director SIDCO, Chairman Tamil Nadu State Marketing Board, apart from being District Collector. May I request Mr. Hansraj Verma, IAS Additional Chief Secretary, to give his special address, please.
Secretary, Government of India, METI Department, DG STPI, Shri Arun Jain, STPI-Chennai head, friends, delegates, and participants in the virtual conference. It's a matter of great pride and honor for the IT department, Government of Tamil Nadu, to be part of this inaugural session, maiden event, FinTERACT, for fintech ecosystems. Friends, Tamil Nadu has always been a pioneering state. Under the leadership of Honorable Chief Minister, his vision is very clear. Leverage technology for making a difference in the lives of the ordinary people. In this context, this event assumes special significance. Apart from the IT department, I also handle the Rural Development Department. And in the Rural Development Department, I am the custodian. I hold in trusteeship the social capital of the state. Now, what is the social capital? The social capital is the 10 million, a crore plus women who have mobilized themselves, organized themselves into self-help groups. This social capital is going to give us the next impetus, the next momentum, the next wave of growth for Tamil Nadu economy and the Indian economy. Similar social capitals exist across India. What is the relevance, correlation of social capital and fintechs and this event? Friends, as the Mission Director of Financial Inclusion, the RD department is mandated for ensuring liquidity in the hands of the women, in educating them in the various aspects of financial products, financial portfolio, ensuring that they're able to find a market for the products, they're able to organize themselves and leverage the power of financial inclusion. In partnership with the banks in Tamil Nadu, we have this year pumped in nearly 15,000 crores of liquidity to the self-help group members under the self-help group's bank linkage program. There's a huge potential here. We can go up to 30,000 crores. This is the kind of maturity Tamil Nadu has got. It is here in this part of financial inclusion and the bank linkage program that the new startups will have a role to play. These startups in various aspects of the financial products can make a difference in the lives of the people apart from being sustainable business propositions. This is all part of the financial inclusion. I also work with Mr. Arun Jain on the other aspect, Mission Samriddhi, where we educate, empower the Panchayat Raj institution members, which are a lakh plus. That is another potential area where we can target the fintech products, in which these PRI members, representatives of the people at the local level, are able to harness the power of fintech for doing their jobs better and making their panchayats more efficient. Now, coming to the technology, the ecosystems that exist in Tamil Nadu. We have one of the best tele densities in India. It's 112%. Every nook and corner of Tamil Nadu has been linked on the OFC network. Government of Tamil Nadu is rolling out the very ambitious BharatNet project called TamilNet. Under this, by next November, coming November, we will link all the 17,000 plus villages in Tamil Nadu on high-speed broadband net connectivity. This will open tremendous markets in rural areas. Our next wave of champions will come from the tier 2, tier 3 and small villages of India. Once we have given them connectivity, they are on par with us. Chennai was always known as the BFSI capital of the world. Banking, financial services and insurance. We have all the back offices of the leading institutions from the financial world based in Chennai. The kind of talent we have here, the throughput per employee, is one of the best here. Ecosystems. FinBlue, in partnership with ELCOT, IT Development Government of Tamil Nadu, STPI, is a fantastic example of a pioneering and a visionary effort. This event will showcase the potential of Tamil Nadu and India as a whole. Tamil Nadu has always been the growth engine of India's economy. I appeal to all the delegates and participants here. Please come and invest here. Invest in Tamil Nadu. And think beyond Tamil Nadu also, because there is a huge potential. COVID-19 under leadership has given us tremendous opportunity. The vision of the Honorable Prime Minister to transform the lives of the people, digitally transform, leverage technology, is finding traction, deep roots in Tamil Nadu. And this is the way forward. Once again, I welcome all the delegates and participants for this 3-day very prestigious event. I reiterate again that it's a matter of great honor for Tamil Nadu IT department to be hosting this. And we'll always be proactive partners, stakeholders, in partnership with all the agencies, in particular MeitY, in taking fintech forward, creating a very sustainable and prosperous ecosystems where it's a win-win for all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind special address. I would acknowledge your kind support and leadership for guiding us to create a very vibrant startup ecosystem in the state of Tamil Nadu. I also take this opportunity to congratulate you for launching ABC policy of the government of Tamil Nadu regarding AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity. And I know that you are working for creating the fintech policy also for the state of Tamil Nadu. And it is in drafting stage, and probably very soon, Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu shall be launching that. So thank you very much for joining us, sir. And now I would move on. I would like to introduce Dr. Onkar Rai, Director General STPI, for addressing the inaugural session. Dr. Onkar Rai is the Director General Software Technology Parks of India, which is the premier government organization working for the promotion of the IT, ITS, and ESDM industry in India. Dr. Rai has contributed immensely in the repositioning STPI with focus on innovation and dispersal of IT, ESDM industry beyond metros. He brings over 25 years of experience in IT, ID, and ESDM sector. He is in unique distinction of working very closely with the government and the IT, ESDM industry. He has been instrumental in formulating an appropriate interface among industry, academia, and ESDM, IT, ESDM industry. He is working for the formulation of the incubation program for IT, ESDM sector to promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and product creation in the country. Prior to joining the STPI, he served NIC in various capacities. He is serving as the director on board of the MTNL, MSITS, and NICSI, Hartron, and he is the member of a governing body of the School of Open Learning, Delhi University, and also a member on the board of governors for the IIIT Bhubaneswar. He is the member of the Vision Group, Advisory Group for the Electronics and IT Department, Government of Odisha, and also a member of the IT Advisory Committee constituted to assist DIT, Government of Goa. Dr. Rai has been educated in Banaras Hindu University, from where he earned his bachelor's, master's, and PhD in statistics. May I request Dr. Onkar Rai, Director General STPI, to kindly give us a special address.
Thank you, Sanjay. The dignitaries on the dais, Sri Ajay Prakash Sahani ji, Secretary MIT, and the chief guest of this launch program, inauguration program, Sri Hansraj Verma ji, Additional Chief Secretary, Government of Tamil Nadu, Sri Arun Jain ji, Chief Mentor, FinBlue, and Chairman of Intellect Design Arena. Other dignitaries on the dais, Sri Yuvaraj Manoharan, Chief Operating Officer, FinBlue, other participants. It's my proud privilege to be here, and I'm very glad that the Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India, Sri Ajay Prakash Sahani himself is here. And it's a matter of proud privilege that the Chief Mentor of this FinBlue, Sri Arun Jain, is also available on this occasion. I must like to remind the stakeholders that the entire concept of FinBlue, which was earlier known as Center of Excellence in Financial Technology, came up with a great collaboration with due diligence with all the stakeholders. And it was envisaged. In fact, I would give due credit to Sri Arun Jain ji, who actually thought that let this Center of Excellence become a true leader in the entire upcoming ecosystem of startup technology startup arena. And I must say that the entire collaborative framework that we resorted to was an idea of Sri Ajay Prakash Sahani ji, Secretary MIT, who believed that a collaborative framework can only be the way forward for creating a proper and meaningful, vibrant Center of Excellence, and for providing everything that is required by the startups so that they could convert their ideas into technology product. I am very glad that this Center of Excellence has not only got a name FinBlue, but this trend has been adopted and emulated by other centers of excellence of STPI. So far, we have already launched 12 Center of Excellence, and each and every Center of Excellence has got a name. It's not merely a Center of Excellence for a particular domain. And that has really helped in us in proper branding of our Center of Excellences. Another idea that was conceived, that was actually discussed at that point of time, that each and every center of excellence of STPI is to become a center of excellence in truth. That means that a center of excellence has to become a knowledge generating place, a place where best practices has to be evolved, research has to be done, and therefore the entire concept of FinTERACT 2021 also emerged from that discussion. I'm very glad that this 3 days event, it was once upon a time thought that it will be a physical 3-day event and it will be the first of its kind event in the entire country, came up with the support of the government of Tamil Nadu, and I must extend my gratitude towards Sri Hansraj Verma ji for such a great support that he has extended to the Center of Excellence. And not only the support that they are working together, they are working with us to make this entire event, this entire endeavor successful. And therefore, this FinTERACT 2021 is a maiden event. It's a first of its kind to make sure that the fintech sector of India gets everything needed from this entire endeavor that we are taking together. Our partners like Intellect Design, Pontech, NetWest, IIT Chennai, NPCI, UIDI, IIT TAI Chennai, Taurus, PayPal, BNG Melon, and such others are working very collaboratively together to make sure that everything that is required by the startup and provided with. This FinTERACT 2021, which is going to see the launch of Sandbox. Actually, this Sandbox is again a very innovative idea. It has got APIs from iTurmeric, which is another Intellect Design product, 100 API from NPCI, 70 API from PayPal, and earlier NetWest, which was also known as RBI, S Bank, and others. Core banking suite again from Intellect Design, low code software by Taurus, data analytics program management tool from IIT Chennai, IIT Madras, and then APIs from SDFC and ICICI are also going to be available in this Sandbox very, very shortly. Again, another launch that will be witnessed under this inauguration program is Marketplace. This Center of Excellence is putting its best to make sure that we collect the problem statement, we provide a platform so that the problem statement is shared to the young boys and girls, the startups, and they could solve the problem that the stakeholders or the ecosystem at large is facing. While making those technology products, they could solve the problem faced by the industry and other stakeholders. And therefore, the entire initiative, this FinTech 2021 is also going to see this second screening process of the startups, which we call PitchFest, second version of our PitchFest, which is also going to be launched today. And therefore, the kind of initiatives, endeavors that are being taken by FinBlue under this FinTERACT 2021 umbrella is actually going to make much difference and going to, make sure that we are able to develop all these requirements and provide those to our upcoming and budding entrepreneurs in this very sector. This 3 days program is also going to has actually attracted the industry leaders from all across the world. It is going to have sessions on international partnership, cross-border technology collaboration, funding, best practices, data protection, architecture, ecosystem developments, collaboration with banks, upskilling for the startups, and such others. I must congratulate the entire team of FinBlue, STPI Chennai, the government of Tamil Nadu, and other partners who are working together to make sure that we become a first very leading center of excellence and could develop such best practices which can be emulated by others. With this, I must congratulate all the stakeholders and wish a very great FinTERACT 2021 sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. I'm sure that under your leadership, sir, we are able to create the India's largest startup ecosystem in STPI through all these various center of excellences which we are setting up. And as per your guidance, FinBlue will be moving ahead, and the FinTERACT conference, the purpose of the FinTERACT conference is to bring entire ecosystem together. Finally, we have reached to the moment we are all waiting very eagerly. May I request Honorable Secretary Shri Ajay Prakash Sahani, Mighty Government of India, to inaugurate FinTERACT 2021 by clicking on button on your screen. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. As you know, sir, that we are creating the FinBlue Innovation Network through the FinBlue program, and the objective of this program is to address regulatory, technical, and business challenges for the startup ecosystem. So we are setting up a FinBlue Sandbox. Before I request you to inaugurate the FinBlue Sandbox, I would like to introduce you the FinBlue Sandbox. FinBlue Sandbox consists of the API exchange, core banking software, low-code software, various business analytical and performance monitoring tools, and cloud credits in order to provide a real-time environment to fintech startups in developing and testing their prototype to production-grade fintech products. FinBlue Sandbox has been set up in the cloud environment which will leverage the fintech startups to scale through incubation facility by accessing Sandbox. API Exchange is a comprehensive platform to provide interface between digital platform of banks, financial institutions, and startups, fintech products, and providing real-time environment for testing their products. As Dr. Rai mentioned, almost 900 plus banking APIs are available in this platform. 800 iTurmeric intellect design core banking APIs are available, 100 from other banks, and this is only the beginning, sir. We would like to bring at least 50 more national and international bank on this platform, and we'll be trying to create as big as API exchange as possible so that we can facilitate the startups to test their products in a real time. Core banking software suites have been provided by the Intellect Design. Low-code software is being also provided. Business analytical and performance monitoring tool have been provided by the IIT Madras, and cloud credit services have been provided by the Amazon. This platform is highly scalable, secured, and enterprises ready. May I request to Honorable Secretary, Mighty Shri Ajay Prakash Sahani ji, kindly click on the launch button and launch the Sandbox. Thank you, sir, for launching the FinBlue Sandbox today. This is one of the historical moments for all of us at STPI-Chennai. This was long-awaited launch, and thank you very much for your kind presence for that. I'm moving on to introduce the FinBlue Marketplace, sir. This is the second component of the FinBlue Innovation Network. FinBlue Marketplace is part of the FinBlue Innovation Network developed by STPI Chennai. The prime objective is to bridge the gap between the buyer's need with the financial institutions and startups by creating an ecosystem across the world in effort to becoming global fintech startup hub. This marketplace will connect industry, investors, startups, and knowledge partners. This is achieved by connecting the problem statements and functional requirements and futuristic technological needs of the bank, NBFCs, and other financial institutions with startup to provide advanced solutions, products, and services. FinBlue Marketplace offers a unique opportunity to meet the domestic and global buyers as well as funding support from the venture capitalists. This marketplace is designed for startups to experience, innovate, and showcase, and help the financial institution to integrate their fintech solutions for increasing their outreach and enhancing customer experience. May I request to the Honorable Secretary Mighty Shri Ajay Prakash Sahani ji to click on the launch button of the FinBlue Marketplace. Thank you very much for launching the FinBlue Marketplace, sir. Now, before inviting the Honorable Secretary Mighty, Shri Ajay Prakash Sahani ji to speak and give his inaugural address, I would like to introduce him. Mr. Sahani is an IS officer of Andhra Pradesh Cadre 1984 batch. As Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and IT, he has been part of the various key initiatives and schemes like Digital India, Digital Northeast Vision 2022, National Policy on Software Products 2019, Electronics Manufacturing, BPO schemes, digital literacy in rural areas, domain-specific Center of Excellences, as well as the Next Generation Incubation Scheme. Before his current role as Secretary Mighty, he has worked as Joint Secretary, Training in DOPT, President and the CEO of NEGD, and as Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. He has held several positions in Andhra Pradesh. Particularly, he played a lead role in total literacy campaign in Nizamabad district in the early 90s. He has also catalyzed the establishment of the International Institute of Information Technology, first of its kind in Hyderabad, and its emergence as one of the premier institutions in the computer science, education, and research. He has also worked as the Principal Secretary to CM of Andhra Pradesh after recognition of the state. May I request, sir, to you to kindly deliver your inaugural address.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, and I would like to greet all all our dignitaries, Shri Hansraj Vermaji, Additional Chief Secretary, Department of IT and Rural Development, Government of Tamil Nadu, Shri Arun Jain ji, CMD of Intellect Design Arena and the Chief Mentor of FinBlue, Dr. Omkar Rai, Director General STPI, Dr. Sanjay Tyagi, Director STPI-Chennai, and also the CEO of FinBlue, as well as Shri Yuvraj Manoharan, CEO, Chief Operating Officer of FinBlue, and all the others who are associated with this program and might be participating through various modes. A very good afternoon to all of you, and it's a wonderful day, just a day after the Republic Day was celebrated here in India, to be going in for a 3 days annual event, a conference of the FinBlue Center, the FinTERACT conference. I think many factors are coming together, which makes me extremely optimistic as to what we can achieve from the exercise that we have embarked upon. First of all, the Government of India, with the help of STPI, with very close partnership of Government of Tamil Nadu, bringing in Mr. Arun Jain, who is one of the tallest leaders of the financial sector's digital aspects of the financial sector in India, bringing in partners from various banks, financial institutions, NPCI. The setting up of the FinBlue itself is an extraordinary feat. It is rare that center, state, industry, the entire, key people in that entire sector, and someone as eminent as Shri Arun Jain come together. There is also a physical infrastructure that is created, and with support from STPI, which already has a deep connect with everything in the IT sector, we make this happen in the city of Chennai. It is not just a strength for Chennai, it's a strength for India. Tamil Nadu and Chennai represent tremendous strengths to us. As Hansraj Vermaji said, a lot of concentration of the BFSI sector is seen in Chennai over the past 2 to 3 decades. In IIT Madras and in many other institutions, we see amazing amount of R&D, not just R&D which remains confined to labs, but R&D which actually manifests itself as startups, as companies, as products, as technologies which reach the people and reach the people to make a deep impact. Tamil Nadu is also emerging as one of the finest centers globally for software products. Software products is the next frontier that we are trying to become good in, great in. Software products is what are driving value creation across the globe. So when we bring all of this together in India in 2021, I think we are in an ecosystem that is primed for growth, that is primed for spectacular growth and success. We have seen with the national public digital platforms that are taking shape, Aadhaar, which has had a huge impact across many sectors, UPI, the Unified Payments Interface, which has fueled the growth of huge payment service providers like Google Pay, which started as Google Pays, of PhonePe, of Paytm, of now other players like Amazon Pay, Bharat Pay. All of these have grown in a spectacular manner because these happened on top of a financial ecosystem which was coming together, an ecosystem which had all the elements that are required for growth, including proactive lead being taken by the regulator, RBI in this case, and many other entities that RBI was able to rope in, including NPCI. Similar growth is expected in many sectors. Health, where a national public digital platform is coming in place. Education, where the blueprint for such a platform is almost ready. Agriculture, where a similar blueprint is at an advanced stage. And many other segments. But the financial technologies sector is very special. Any sector is going to be digital, more digital than physical as we move forward. And in the area of finance, and especially in the area of technology-led financial services sector, India has a very special appeal. We have core banking, which is implemented in a harmonized manner across the length and breadth of the banking sector. We have equally strong companies in insurance. We have a well-developed equity and mutual funds marketplace. And we have on the pensions front also, which is part of the financial ecosystem, we have fairly well-developed ecosystem. In all of these, when the technology elements, when digital technologies start making an impact, the upside, the growth potential is phenomenal. We have just one other country globally which has a larger population. However, that country is, innovation in that country is not open to everyone. In India, we believe in open systems, open standards, open opportunities to Indian players whom obviously we will want to favor, but also provide tremendous opportunities to entities from across the globe to come, innovate, establish themselves in India, and compete for a share in the Indian market. And the Indian market is huge. apart from being so large, it's now a very attractive market because the digital enablers are in place. At this point, coming together of the right partners in establishing FinBlue has created a huge supporting ecosystem. I'm so excited to see the sandbox where APIs from banking sector, the core banking software, the low-code system, low-code software systems are all coming together to enable startups and innovators to test their offerings, to prepare for compliance. Compliance and trust, I think, are two major words in the area of finance. And for trust, ensuring that you are harmonized with, ensuring that you are compliant with existing parts of the ecosystem is extraordinarily important. The sandbox sets apart FinBlue from a number of other incubation centers. This is not, FinBlue is not just an incubation center. The sandbox itself might be one of the most important building blocks for a national ecosystem and moving ahead even for a global ecosystem. I would see FinBlue and its sandbox joining or adding to the strength of the sandbox which is set up by RBI and sandboxes that are getting set up, for instance, the one in Singapore and other countries globally which has emerged. The one in Singapore had emerged as one of the pioneering sandboxes. We can grow FinBlue and its sandbox to be a worthy part of the global ecosystem of financial sandboxes. Add to it the marketplace where all kinds of products and services can be made available by startups, by young companies, by well-established companies. Make their offerings visible to the buyers and also be able to use it as a gateway to the Indian market. I think the combination of the sandbox and the marketplace makes FinBlue itself a fabulous and a very attractive location for any kind of innovative activity, for any kind of business activity in the BFSI space. Combine with it the incubator and the possibility that absolutely new and brilliant ideas in the hands of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, can be converted into products, services, and enterprises woven around those products and services with help from this entire setup. I think it's a huge combination. I would like to compliment, I would like to extend my gratitude to Arun Jain ji, who has especially given shape to such a powerful set of strong artifacts, who has helped us give shape to FinBlue and now to FinTERACT. Also to DG STPI, Sanjay Tyagi ji, the government of Tamil Nadu, which has participated with us every step of the way in bringing to fruition this major 3-day event. The 3-day event is just the beginning. I would like to think of it as an annual event. Every year, let us look at having this event, grow it from year to year, attract more and more participants, well-established entities, the VCs and angel investors, the startups and innovators, the entities that are offering products and services, not just within India and for the Indian ecosystem. Over a period of time, we can make it an even larger event which can be a part of similar events globally. I truly believe that 2020s is India's decade. It's time for innovators in India not just to grow something new, but to grow their ideas into companies, grow those companies to a scale that hardly a few locations across the globe can support. If one is a startup in a smaller country, as Arun Jain ji mentioned, many of our states and sometimes even our districts can be the size of countries elsewhere. When a company has an excellent idea and a very innovative, very powerful product, the first growth, which is very natural, happens in the country of its origin. And fortunately for us, our country with a billion-strong population gives us the room to grow to a level where becoming a unicorn is also not difficult. There are many countries in the world, a large number of countries. I would say leave about a dozen or maybe 15 or 20 countries. It's almost impossible. It's extremely difficult to grow a new product, to grow a new idea, and then to take it to a billion-dollar valuation, to make it a unicorn. Not so in India. In India, I think every year, definitely more than half a dozen, possibly getting into double figures, is the number of unicorns that we have come to expect. This is something extraordinary about the size and scale of India. And this becomes manifest, especially when we organize things at a national scale. If we do it only as a city or as a state, we still do not make full use of the scale and the size of India. I think coming together, bringing together a nationwide ecosystem as we are doing through our sandbox and through our marketplace is the catalyst. It is the defining difference between this one and any other competing centers. So I would like to mention to many of the entities that are participating, that are watching the program today, this is the place to be in. This is the place that can help you accomplish your dreams, whether those dreams are of reaching out with your existing products and services to a much larger market, or you have dreams of creating the next major products and services in the financial space. We begin this with banking, but we do not stop with banking. So we are already very powerful assemblage of stakeholders in banking. I think we will continue to build this ecosystem and make it a complete financial ecosystem. And this is the place which will help you grow and help you accomplish many of your dreams. My welcome to all of you. And any of the companies, startups that participate, we are there with you every step of the way. You have excellent mentors, you have excellent VCs, angel funds, TIE itself, which represents, the spirit of Indian entrepreneurship. All of us are there to walk hand in hand, walk step by step in step with you and take you forward. Thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this wonderful event. I look forward to excellent results from this event, as well as look forward to next editions of the event in the years in future. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words, for the encouragement. We are looking towards you for your kind leadership in helping us pivoting through this long and very exciting journey STPI have embarked upon. As you advised, sir, this event, which shall be an annual event, and we will be keep on inviting the global leaders for the deliberation and discussion. We, at the end of this event, sir, we have also planned, our chief mentor have advised us to come out with a white paper, and all the 6 pillars which have been identified and shall be deliberated into this, shall be discussed, and all the way forward shall be compiled in a form of a white paper. As you said, sir, the products which shall be developed under the FinBlue umbrella, they will be able to provide compliance and the trust in the financial services sector. You have rightly said, sir, that the sandbox, FinBlue sandbox, is actually access to the global ecosystem, and the FinBlue marketplace is the gateway to the Indian market, Indian products. So this is what, sir, which we have launched today under your kind leadership. And as you have rightly said, sir, that the sandbox, we are also looking for the international collaboration, and we are trying to do co-sandboxing with other production grade sandbox. As you rightly said, that in Singapore we are having a wonderful sandbox, and our chief mentor is kind enough to connect us to them. We are also trying to connect with other sandbox in India, and with the RBI also would like to work together. And whatever the resources we have, we would like to be utilized by nationally by all the startups, sir. And we are very thankful for your kind presence, sir, and for launching the FinTERACT 2021 FinBlue Sandbox and FinBlue Marketplace. We are indebted to you. My chief mentor have told me that the last 2% is the 200%, and probably the launching of the Sandbox and the FinBlue Marketplace is that 2%, which will make us 200%, sir. And we will keep working hard. We'll put our mind, body, and soul in making it successful. That promise I can make to all the dignitaries on the dais today. Thank you, sir, once again. I would now request to my colleague, Mr. Yuvraj Manoharan, Chief Operating Officer of the FinBlue, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay Tyagi. This is a remarkable day in our journey of FinBlue, the FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI in association with the ELCOT and Government of Tamil Nadu. Today, we have taken a leap towards our dream in placing India among the global FinTech startup space by organizing this virtual conference with participation of international speakers who share their view on achieving cross-border collaboration, international partnerships, role of banks and financial institutions, VC funding, data empowerment and protection, go-to-market strategy, training and mentoring. I take this moment to thank all our dignitaries on stage, Sri Ajay Prakash Sahani, Secretary, Mighty Government of India, Sri Hansraj Verma, Additional Chief Secretary, Department of IT, Government of Tamil Nadu, Dr. Omkar Rai, Director General, STPI, Sri Arun Jain, CMD, Intellect Design Arena and Chief Mentor, FinBlue, Dr. Sanjay Tyagi, Director, STPI-Chennai and CEO of FinBlue. Our partner, TI-Chennai, in organizing this event, our knowledge partners for designing the sandbox and marketplace, our event partners for getting our website and virtual conference, our mentors, PMG and GC members for supporting us. Also to our esteemed speakers, and special mention of our gratitude to our sponsors, Viasys and K7 Computing. I also take this opportunity to thank you all who have made your precious time allocated to attend this event. Last, but the essential and integral part, I thank to all our STPI Chennai staff members, FinBlue team, STPI HQ team, STPI Next members, and the entire STPI team who helped us to reach this milestone today. Now sit back and get enlightened with the unlimited and exciting knowledge share by our esteemed speakers for next 3 days. Thank you all.
After such a grand inauguration, I hope you are ready for the first of the speaker sessions we have lined up for you at FinTERACT 2021. For the first keynote session of our first day here, we have with us the Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor of the City of London, Alderman William Russell. Alderman William Russell took office as the 692nd Lord Mayor of the City of London on 8th November 2019. He served as a Sheriff of the City of London in 2016-17 and in that capacity supported the then Lord Mayor, undertaking numerous visits and official functions. On 30th September 2020, Alderman Russell was elected to serve a further year in office to provide continuity of civic governance during the COVID-19 emergency. His mayoral theme for his time in office is Global UK, the New Future, supporting businesses through the crisis, speeding the recovery and seizing the opportunities of the new future. At FinTERACT 2021, he will be speaking about the role of international partnerships in nurturing fintech ecosystems. Please join me in welcoming on the virtual stage Alderman Russell.
I am delighted to speak to you today as part of FinTERACT 2021. My name is William Russell, and I am the 692nd Lord Mayor of the City of London. In this role, I act as an ambassador for UK financial professional services, working with international firms, both at home and abroad, to enhance the sector globally. Just last November, for example, I conducted a virtual visit to India, speaking with Indian firms interested in doing business with the UK. Before I begin, may I thank FinBlue, the FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI, and their partners STPI-Chennai for bringing us all together virtually. I must also thank our speakers for participating in today's discussion and our panelists, both of whom are discussing a subject that is critical for the UK and Indian economy and our financial services sector. Today's discussions will center around the importance of international partnerships for fostering better ecosystems. And I will be exploring this topic through the lens of the UK-India relationship. For years, the UK and India have been important allies on the global stage. Our mutual appreciation for each other's cultures and people has led to a strong bond between our two nations, a bond which has cultivated a robust and flourishing trade and investment relationship, delivering jobs and prosperity across both countries. Today, the UK-India trade story is about mutual flows of capital, technology, and people. UK companies have invested over $28 billion in India since the year 2000. And over the last 10 years, we have been India's second fastest growing G20 investor. Similarly, India is the second highest investor in the United Kingdom, according to numbers of projects measured. Indian investments have enabled 120 new projects in the UK, creating over 5,000 jobs in the year 2019-2020. I'm also proud to say bilateral trade between our two nations increased by almost 10% to over £24 billion in 2019. To grow our international partnership further, we must look to the sectors fueling the future of finance. Sectors such as cybersecurity, sustainable financing, and fintech. Fintech, in particular, has been invaluable during the COVID-19 pandemic. From contactless cards to online and mobile payments, blockchain to open banking, all these developments have given people unprecedented power to manage their personal finances. This has allowed them to react quickly to the rapidly changing financial picture. We have also seen an increased rate of digitization, with the speed of adoption estimated to have happened 18 months quicker due to the pandemic. As we seek to recover the global economy from the effects of COVID-19, and fintech will be one of our most valuable tools. Just as our response to the pandemic has been global in nature, so must our response to its recovery. Collaborating across borders to find new technological solutions to our financial problems. The UK and India are in good positions to make this happen. Home to the globe's largest financial centre, the UK has established a world-leading fintech hub. We have a thriving fintech ecosystem, thanks to our broad and deep financial services skills base, talented software developers, supportive regulators, and supply of investment. There are now more than 1,600 fintech firms in the UK, a figure expected to double by 2030. And we have an impressive fintech adoption rate of 42%, well above the global average of 33%. Most importantly, our fintech sector has great support from our government and regulators. In the summer of 2020, the government launched the UK FinTech Strategic Review. This review has 5 work streams: skills, investment, national connectivity, policy and regulation and competitive, and seeks to understand how financial technology can better support the global recovery. Recommendations are due to be announced in spring 2021, and findings will benefit key markets at the forefront of innovation, such as India. As the third largest fintech center in the world, India also has an excellent fintech ecosystem. The country offers a 29% expected return on fintech projects, one of the highest returns in the world, and far higher than the global average of 20%. The overall transaction value in the Indian fintech market is estimated to jump from approximately $65 billion in 2019 by 20% to $140 billion by 2023. And digital lending is also expected to increase from $75 billion in 2018 to $1 trillion by 2023. Like the UK, these impressive statistics are backed by the Indian government's support of fintech. Your government, in collaboration with industry, have built the world's most advanced payment system in the form of unified payments interface. And government has played an important role in enabling the disruption of payments, powering the growth of startups across the country. Your impressive growth, combined with high level of government support, make India one of the most promising global fintech markets and a natural partner for the UK. Already, the UK and India have found much success in their fintech partnership. For example, Agvesto, a friend of the cities and a British fintech firm concerned with sustainable financing, launched its operations in India last year. Working with the rural community, the company will focus on parametric insurance products and assist issuers of debt in accessing international green and sustainability-focused capital. This collaboration will no doubt enhance financial inclusion across India, whilst helping both countries fulfill their sustainable development goals. Another UK-India success story is TMW Pay. This Indian fintech picked London as its chosen city for global expansion, bringing its expertise in digital payments to the London market. The organization hopes to use London's advanced financial market and easy access to top tech talent to expand its presence in the UK and Europe. As we look to the future, there are many new opportunities available for UK-Indian fintech partnerships to grow. The UK is particularly keen to work with Indian fintech firms at the upper end of the scaling journey, supporting more companies to grow the capital they need through the London market. Over the last 5 years, the London Stock Exchange has hosted 8% of fintech listings across the major exchanges. And we certainly welcome more Indian firms to partner with this world-leading exchange. We are equally keen to support India with its ambitious financial inclusion agenda. I know your regulators are keen to establish new alliances with global fintech firms to encourage greater innovation in the field of financial inclusion. Having already worked with India through the UK-India Economic and Financial Dialogue and the UK-India FinTech Awards 2020, I know the City of London would be pleased to facilitate discussions for such alliances. Ladies and gentlemen, the answer to our original question is clear. International partnerships are essential for fostering better ecosystems. Through the UK-India example, we can see that our international partnership has strengthened the fintech centers of both nations. Through driving competition, increasing the sharing of expertise, and offering greater access to top talent and resources. As the global economy seeks to recover from the pandemic, fintech will be one of our most valuable tools. Small businesses in particular have been hard hit. They are the engines of our economies, and we need to support them in the digital transformations imperative to survival. This is just one of the many challenges we must transcend borders to resolve. Working together to improve market access and share expertise, and ultimately ensuring the success of our global economy for years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Russell, for such a perfect start to a series of sessions we have planned at FinTERACT 2021. To continue the theme, we will witness a fireside discussion between Mr. Guillermo Mota, Mr. Shrikant Tiwari, and Mr. Rahul Ahluwalia. Mr. Mota is the Head of Operations India at SalaryFits UK, a leading fintech and HR tech company that promotes financial inclusion and well-being. He is responsible for setting up Salary Fits operations in India, a fintech company that through its platform allows products or service providers to integrate their systems with payroll information of entities, providing access to a new risk assessment tool, as well as the possibility of deducting installments directly from one's salary. With significant experience driving companies to the right strategies on international markets, and with currently over 15 years of experience in the Indian market, Mr. Mota has worked with a range of different projects from commercial and marketing strategies to mergers and acquisitions. Our second speaker, Mr. Shrikant Tiwari, is Partner, Clients and Markets at ValueFi. Mr. Tiwari is a seasoned fintech professional with 14 years of experience leading sales and market expansion teams across multiple markets like Southeast Asia, Middle East and India. He has previously worked with Thomson Reuters, leading buy-side sales in Southeast Asia. He has a deep understanding of wealth technologies and wealth ecosystems and has successfully expanded the ValueFi footprint in more than 3 markets. The moderator for this session will be Mr. Rahul Ahluwalia. As the first Secretary of Financial Services, Mr. Ahluwalia leads the UK government's work to strengthen cooperation between the UK's financial services industry and India, on secondment from Her Majesty's Treasury in London. Mr. Ahluwalia was educated at Oxford and Yale. It is my pleasure to welcome our esteemed speakers to FinTERACT 2021. We look forward to this deep dive on the importance of partnerships and how they can be the pathbreaker for the sector going forward.
Hi, I'm Rahul Ahluwalia. I'm the first Secretary for Financial Services at the British High Commission. I'm based in Mumbai, and it's a pleasure to be with you today for FinTERACT 2021, which is an international virtual conference hosted by FinBlue, the FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI-Chennai, in partnership with ELCOT and TIE-Chennai. And we're very pleased to have this session today. It's about the UK-India FinTech corridor and how we're having an impact on the ground here in India, and as TIE's ambition is to promote entrepreneurship, how two relatively kind of startup companies are performing on their journeys in India. So the UK and India, why do we care about FinTech? Well, finance and technology are two of the UK government's biggest priorities in India, and FinTech brings them together. There is very strong political commitment. Both prime ministers have stood jointly at their previous summit to announce a partnership on FinTech, and mentorship. We find is really, really important because capital flows between the two countries are very strong. But one of the key ingredients is mentorship and sharing experiences between experts in both countries. I think is incredibly important to see that corridor flourish. COVID has made FinTech even more important, financial inclusion most importantly, but also credit flow and insurance. FinTech is much, much more important because of COVID. And I think this today's session really crystallizes why FinTech is important in both directions, because the UK as well has the world-leading FinTech center, and India's Aadhaar system has really amazed the world and presents huge opportunities for international business and domestic business to serve that very important population. And so I'm delighted to be here today with a couple of people who are much more expert at FinTech than I am. And they both, as I said, represent very interesting, exciting, fast-growing companies. So we have Shrikant Tiwari, who is a partner of clients and markets at ValueFi. And I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. And we have Guy Mota, who's head of operations for Salary Fits India. And both of them are doing very interesting work, but I'll let them tell you about themselves and about their journeys in the UK-India FinTech corridor when they introduce themselves. Should we go with Shrikant first?
Okay, so thank you, Rahul, for providing this opportunity opportunity to speak about and participate in this event. Let me start by telling you what Valuefy do, and also then highlight what is experience so far been UK and how we are looking at this market and all the support which you and your team is giving us. So Valuefy is a 10-year-old fintech. We work with banks, private banks, and wealth managers. In India and in Asia, we've created a very niche space for ourselves where we serve wealth managers and private banks with a disruptive technology. And it all started 2 years ago when we looked at what should we choose as a base location for our international expansion, because at that time we were getting a very good response from various other markets. And that's where we decided to explore, and we looked at a couple of options right from London, Switzerland, and Singapore. What we realized that, London, and then incidentally, we met somebody from the British High Commission, and then London and partners, and then everything is transpired. We are looking at London as a central location for our international expansion. And that is because of a few reasons. We see that being a great financial sector. There is a lot of disruption in the market. There is a great environment when it comes to IPR. And in the last 1 year or so, since we started working with our clients in London, some of the connections which UK High Commission and London partner provided us, we are able to establish the business, the start of the business. We put the subsidiary almost 8 months ago, and we are right now, as we speak, at a point of inflection where we've onboarded 5 to 10 clients, and we're looking ahead for a bigger business next year. So that's about Valuefy in short.
Thank you very much, Shrikant. Very interesting. Should we go to Guy, and you can tell us a bit about salary fits?
Thank you very much, Ahu. Thank you, Shrikant, for sharing this panel with us. And of course, thank you, the IT guys, for inviting Salary Fits for being part of this seminar. So Salary Fits, and it was a really good point that Shrikant was highlighting of choosing London, choosing UK as an international hub for its company, because in a way it happens similar to Salary Fits. So Salary Fits is originally a Brazilian company, or I would say our parent company is originally from Brazil. So we have been doing that in Brazil for the last 20 years, working with the main banks in Brazil and some of them in Europe as well. And 4 to 5 years ago, we have started to have London as our international hub, as our international headquarters, because we know how important it would be for growing internationally our operations on the other 7 countries that we are right now. And not only that, of course, having this environment or this really important fintech and developed fintech environment, but also supporting as well in our discussions with potential investors or raising funds. And not taking long, basically Salary Fits, we are a fintech/HR tech company that will promote on one side different financial providers, connecting them to the payroll of entities for promoting better financial benefits to its employees. So we are a B2B2C platform and working mainly with banks and different financial providers.
Thank you, Guy. That's very interesting. And it's really great to hear about your journey, not just from the UK to India, but from Brazil to the UK to India. And I think, if I can transpose that onto what Valuefy is doing, perhaps you're looking to do something similar, go from India to the UK and have that as a platform to then expand internationally, and that speaks to the the stellar fintech environment in London, and I think if I can just dwell a bit, what do you see as the strengths of London in the fintech landscape as a platform, and kind of what attracted you to London, Shrikant?
Well, see, for us, core of our business is wealth tech. And if you look at the wealth business for the last 30 years, it's been dominated by a few markets. And when I say dominance, it's come from various angles. One is access to that banking system, which is stable, giving the regulatory environment for this business to thrive, and then giving a forward-looking ecosystem for wealth management business to grow and coin new business model. Now, when we combine all of that, and then in all of these three things, the key for us was where to base our business, where we get access to these things, credibility for an organization to create and strength. So we saw that, if you look at Dubai, if you look at Swiss market, if you look at European market, if you look at Singapore market, which are the core offshore wealth markets in Asia and Europe, you see most of them are being inspired by the banking, the regulation environment from London. So the whole thing started when I visited DIFC and I met some clients, and everybody was talking about we function the way you would function in London. We are completely governed by British laws. So we wanted a base. We wanted a base where we are in an ecosystem where we are between those regulations, things happening in terms of new business model, so that we can place our technology. So that's where London came into the picture. And secondly, definitely, we see a very good Indian in London. We have many connections. We see a significant amount of Indians contributing versus, let's say, a Swiss or a Zurich market. Combining all that as a lot of access through London and partners, we were given a good guidance. We were introduced to the right set of attorneys to understand what's the status of IPR laws, what is the status of various tax laws, etc. So overall, when we compared, we just left with a couple of choices. That was Singapore, London, and Dubai, and we chose London.
Excellent, thank you very much, and that's a kind of resounding endorsement. Guy, from your experience at SalaryFits, is there anything you want to add to that, or was it a kind of broadly a similar thought process?
Yeah, I totally agree with Shrikant. And again, we had no doubt when we started to plan to grow internationally with our spin-off concept of a established company in Brazil, that the UK market will be a strategic one for growing across Europe, and of course with its influence in Asia as well. And London was also part of our decision when we started to think about India. We know that, like as Chikran was saying, that there is a huge bridge and connections and business, not only in the fintech sector, but overall all the other markets. And of course, it was also helping our entrance in Indian market.
Thank you, Guy. As a member of the Indian diaspora in the UK, I'm very familiar with those really strong linkages between people, capital, technology, ideas, and yeah, they are very strong. And it's what we call the living bridge. In fact, Prime Minister Modi coined that term in one of his speeches. So it's what we call the living bridge, and it's something that really has a deep impact not just on society and culture, but also business. And that's great to hear that that's part of your decision making. Coming back to India, where we all are right now, what do you see as the key opportunities that you're trying to harness in India, and what do you think the UK has to offer in those spaces? And from your experience running companies, when you bring ideas over from the UK and bring people and technology, all those things. What is it that we can add value to, in India? Should we go to Guy first on that one?
Great, thank you, Rahul. Particularly in our case of SalaryFits, that we are working as a fintech/HR tech company, of course, there is a really value seen point when you're bringing financial support and financial technology from UK as well, and also from other markets that we have already proved our concept over there. And I believe that our main challenge in India right now is also the HR fraternity and discussing more with the other big point of our business. So showing now in India, and we have been doing that for the last 3 years, of course, working on spreading the word of our concept. but showing India, for the Indian companies, how it's important to be supporting financially as well its employees. So like right now, facing the COVID situation, working from home, all these scenarios that we are facing right now all around the world, showing the companies here how it's important being supporting its employees, and of course, more than that, financial supporting them as well. I think that would be something that maybe in India we will spend a bit more time for showing how it's different in UK and at least in the Western countries.
Thank you. Shrikant, any thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I think in order for, if I see it from a perspective of an entrepreneur looking to build a large business, and how the whole association of London, India, the governments, the whole concept, what you just said, bridge can be extended. I think bringing a mentorship wherein you bring unique sets, skill sets into a single box, wherein there could be an access of intellectual capital, navigation, into a single cell can be very helpful. So if I say, so far our experience has been amazing. It's fantastic that the way London partners and the associated agencies have helped us. But now when we have become a growth company, the important point is to bring easy access to capital, having mentorship, which brings some of the Indian companies and Indian talent together with some of the London or let's say UK based specifics. So as of today, we need a lot of help in navigating through regulations. If there is a direct access to that, the whole cycle time to navigate and circumvent around the regulation when it comes to product can be shortened. There could also be a way to bring some of the best London companies, which are good in, let's say, local onboarding, local regulation, regtech companies, fintech, because some of these things are very correlated, So bringing a group of companies from London and from India who are into a similar space and giving them a springboard of where they can really connect on a very real problem. That's where I think it can be a game changer to build the next technology companies. I think India is going to be the next software capital of the world. And when I say software, I say B2B software. And you can't take away the maturity and the understanding of regulation and banking from the markets like London. If we combine these two and make available an ecosystem where there are companies, there are experts from regulatory fields, there are experts to navigate through the new regulations or let's say access to capital, ideas, etc. This can reduce few years from the company like us, and that can be game changing for us.
Thank you. Those are all really interesting points that you make there, and good ideas for us to follow up on. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have an existing FinTech Awards mentorship program that runs, and we have the best and brightest kind of FinTech startups from both countries, and an excellent roster of mentors as well. And we're aiming to do that, but obviously there's always more we can do in that space. I want to pick up on something that you said, Shrikant, about the regulatory environment. Obviously, you said the London regulatory environment very conducive. In your view, how's your experience of working in the Indian regulatory environment, and what are some of the things specifically that there is room for kind of fruitful engagement between the two countries? If I come back to you, Shrikant, first, and then I come to Guy after.
Okay, so let me talk from the perspective of the regulatory environment, especially which impacts the banking and associated services. In India, we're far behind when it comes to real execution of these from a perspective that the consumer gets the value. Second, the whole ecosystem. There are multiple agencies in India. There is SEBI, there is IRDA for the insurance side of things, There are, PFRDA for the pension side of things. But then when it comes to financial advice, it's mostly SEBI which is driving things. And most of them work in a very isolated way. What I've seen in London, where there is a very strong guideline, a very deep understanding of how financial advice is delivered, and it protects the interest of both consumer and the financial advisor. And that's where it becomes easier for companies like us to create products which connect the financial advisor, banks, and customer into one box. That's what a fintech company does, right? So in India, it's the whole environment is very much like a law. It's not really detailed out in practice with very tangible experience and tangible modularities developed for all of these players to be working into one. So I think what DIFC is done with themselves, consuming, I think, the regulatory environment and the whole experience from London and putting it in India and creating the entire DIFC, where we see almost on a daily basis new organizations are getting started. That's what India should do, ideally, by learning from the banking experience and then probably localizing it for India, wherein the huge, because India is a good market, it's a big market, and it's different, but then bringing that to India and localizing it, and I think that's where the responsibility of both the government collaboration goes, to make it really possible in India for an organization like us as well.
Great, thanks Shrikant, that's really interesting. Guy, any reflections on that?
No, again, just like agreeing with Shrikant, and I believe, just adding on my perception of being a foreign living here in India, I think that the financial ecosystem here in India has been working quite comfortably with the huge market that we have here. Of course, there is no way to deny the potential of the market in India. And being comfortable with that, they were creating a lack of space for this new fintech wave that's happening right now in India. So the banks here, the government as well, they start to see this transformation. Of course, they are working and running for making this change as well. But I think that it was a mistake of being comfortable with this huge market and potential market that we have, and neglecting the low cost or the base of the pyramid here in India, and offering sustainable products to all these individuals.
Thank you, Guy. And I completely agree. I think financial inclusion is absolutely central to India's development, and that's something that we're very focused on as well. I'm conscious that we've just got a few minutes left. It's India's budget this week, on the 1st of Feb, in a few days. Obviously, post-COVID, economic growth is high on the agenda. FinTech, very important for that. If I can ask you both, what's on your wish list for the budget in terms of promoting FinTech, financial inclusion, and the sort of the banking sector more generally, and I guess asset management from your perspective, Shrikant, and Guy, from your perspective as well. Shrikant, very briefly.
Yeah, so I think I would expect and would really be delighted if Prime Minister Modi continues on what he's doing for the last couple of years in budgets, which is creating bigger pool for the salaried employees to push giving them more opportunities to park their money into asset management, wealth management, and financial products, because that's a way to financial inclusion and financial security for the world. So he's been positive on giving those rooms through tax rebates, tax benefits, to various kind of schemes for various types. I think if we can continue on that, that will be a great push as more and more people get under the inclusion of financial investments.
And just adding,
thank you, Enki.
I just would say that would be great to see that not really centralized under the government umbrella, and bring more power to other institutions and companies as well for being part of this budget and all the other financial support that we are seeing here in India right now.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very, very much. We'll all watch that very closely then. So I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Guy and Shrikant, for joining me on this panel today. And thank you also to FinBlue, the FinTech Center of Excellence, STPI, and STPI-Chennai for the opportunity to have this discussion at FinTERACT 2021. And wish you all a very good rest of the year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers. This conversation provided the perfect scaffolding to what we hope is a conference fueled by the power of partnerships and building networks. For our second session today, we have a panel discussion discussing fintech funding, its opportunities, challenges, and best practices. Our first panelist, Ms. Padmaja Ruparel, is nationally recognized as a key player in the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem and has helped co-found many relevant institutions apart from being an active angel investor herself. She is the co-founder and president of the Indian Angel Network, India's first and now possibly one of the world's largest groups of business angels, comprising the who's who of successful entrepreneurs and dynamic CEOs from India and overseas. She has been nominated as the co-chair of the Global Business Angel Network, is a member of the National Expert Advisory Committee on Innovation, Incubation and Technology Entrepreneurship, is a senior managing partner of the IAN Fund, and is a member of the Governing Council of EM3 Services, a nation-building venture seeking to create a paradigm shift in the Indian agricultural sector by improving productivity. Joining her on the panel today will be Mr. Prem Bhartasarthi, Managing Partner of Pontac. Mr. Bhartasarthi set up the first UK-India Innovation Fund in history in 2015 to cross-pollinate tech transfer between UK and India and create sustainable economic development through the creation of jobs in both the economies. He defined the overall strategy and the vision of Pontac and has successfully demonstrated the growth and expansion of technologies companies from UK to India and vice versa. He has led the firm to create partnerships with many private organizations as well as the state governments of Haryana, Gujarat, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu to promote innovative exchanges between UK and the state governments. He also established a partnership with the central government of India and state government of Tamil Nadu to create a FinTech Center of Excellence based out of Chennai in order to incubate FinTech companies in India and give them access to UK and beyond. Mr. Bhartasarthi also successfully enabled setting up the first ever UK-India Tech Hub in the UK. He has been recognized as 40 under 40 leaders in the UK-India-EU relations and was also named as one of the top 100 Asians in tech in the UK. Our third panelist for today is Dr. Jayjeet Bhattacharya, founder and CEO of Xeron Microsystems. Dr. Bhattacharya is a noted expert in societal transformation leveraging technology and is the recipient of the prestigious APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Innovation in Governance. Dr. Bhattacharya is on the board of IIM Calcutta Innovation Park and is a member of the Governing Senate at IIIT Raipur. He has earlier worked in senior roles in Accenture, IBM, Oracle, Sun Microsystems and HP. He has been responsible for the creation of the next generation of solutions for governments based on open standards. Dr. Bhattacharya advises governments on policy and e-governance strategies. He has numerous research papers to his credit in leading journals and conferences. He has authored 5 books on e-governance, including being the co-author of the first book on e-governance in India, Government Online, Opportunities and Challenges, and author of the first e-governance textbook in the world, eGov 2.0, Policies, Processes and Technologies. Dr. Bhattacharya did his PhD from the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Delhi, MBA from IIM Calcutta, and BTech in Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur. This conversation will be moderated by Mr. Mahesh Ramachandran, Governing Council member at STPI-Chennai and FinBlue FinTech Center of Excellence. set up by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. He is a successful serial and social entrepreneur turned investor. Mr. Ramachandran is a partner of Pontac, a cross-border venture capital innovation fund, an angel investor, mentor, independent director supporting innovative startups and helps build the ecosystem. He is also the founder of Commonwealth Inclusive Growth Services Limited, which operates in over 30,000 locations across 27 states in India. It is now my pleasure to hand over the virtual stage to Mr. Ramachandran.
FinBlue, the FinTech Center of Excellence at the Software Technology Parks of India, Chennai, is set up under the aegis of MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. We take pleasure in inviting Padmaja from Indian Angel Network, Jayjeet from Zeron Microsystems, and Prem Kumar from UK, the Managing Director of Pontac Cross-Border Innovation Fund, to this FinTERACT conference on venture capital, opportunities, challenges, and the road ahead. Thank you again, Padmaja, Jayjeet, and Prem. It is our pleasure to have you on board. And I'll start with the first question to Padmaja. Padmaja, could you briefly explain the difference between Indian Angel Network and IAN Fund? What is the criteria used to decide to invest from an angel network vis-a-vis the fund itself?
Thank you, Mahesh, and thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. I am truly very happy to be with my co-panelists. IAN, as you know, is the first angel group in the country. We have about 500 angel investors who are investing very actively. Last year, they did over 45 deals. So this is a very active platform. As we've gone through 15, 16 years of life as IAN, one of the key things we started to look at, and we did some data analytics around that to see where we have performed. One of the key things that emerged is while we have done a good IRR of mid-30s and with a low failure rate, but we could improve our portfolio performance by bringing early stage next round funding. And that's when we decided to launch the IAN fund. So now between the IAN investors and the fund, we have probably the single largest platform for seed and early stage investing for entrepreneurs to raise from 25 lakhs to 50 crores along with our co-investors. And we're sitting almost in the center of the ecosystem. So we do have a lot of marquee investors, VCs, strategics, overseas investing with us. To your second question, Mahesh, the way we pick up a deal at an angel level, an opportunity at an angel level or a fund is very, very simple and perhaps stupid, but it works very, very well. Companies which are raising up to 6 crores, we have the angels lead it and the fund comes in with 20%, which is very good for very early angel deals because they have an institutional investor already sitting there who will quickly move it to the next level. If the deal is more than 6 crores, then of course we take it with the fund. And if it's any of our portfolio companies before or after the fund was launched, we pick it up at the fund and take it forward. So together what we are doing is exactly the thesis that we had put out, that early stage, there are two critical pieces for any early stage venture. One is fund and the other is talent. Mm-hmm. We believe and we bet on the founders. So the talent is brought in by the companies and we are trying to bring in the funds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great. And thank you very much for that insight. May I now actually request Prem. Prem, as a cross-border innovation fund, what difference do you see in investing in fintech companies overseas and in India? As many of these fintechs see global opportunities, how do you help them as a cross-border innovation fund?
So yeah, thank you, Mahesh, thanks to Padmaja and Jayjeet as well, and glad to be part of this panel. To your first question, Mahesh, in terms of the cross-border and what differences do we see on the fintech ecosystem, I think it's a value chain and a valuation quest. Right? From a value chain perspective, what we have seen, and it's continuing to kind of slimmer down, is that in India, in the fintech space, you have more companies coming in the payments and finance space, even though that is kind of reducing. And as such, you have the entire value chain being addressed. For example, you're talking about, for example, in the Western world, one would also see payments and finance, but would also see other elements like technologies in charity sector for contactless payments or capital markets kind of companies, which one necessarily doesn't see in India emerging as quickly as the Western world is coming through. But part of this is also driven by the use cases required from required of a developing nation was that of a developed nation, and also the volume versus the value economy, and notwithstanding the regulatory support that one would see. For example, India, you wouldn't see as many crypto companies, whereas in the Western world, one would see that. So that is on the value chain perspective. But if you also whittle it down into the sectors as well within fintech or subsectors within fintech, you also have insurtech and regtech. But yes, India is catching up on the insurtech sector, but not at the pace at which the Western world is. Primarily driven by the penetration of insurance within India. Regtech, again, I think we are yet to catch up on a longer space there. So that's on the UK and Indian comparison on the value chain perspective. Valuation perspective, I think India is a much better value for money, as any investor would say, because the Western world is extremely costly. On a like-for-like basis, we think at least the Western world is at least twice. In terms of the cross-border and expansion, we help them with capital, markets, and clients. Capital in terms of investments and co-investments from investors from the Western world, which is FDI into India. Markets in terms of helping them set up in the UK through various opportunities available and grants, and clients through our network of mentors and venture partners.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Prem, and thank you for joining today from UK. I think I have a very interesting question, and I'll come back to you. In the meantime, I would like to actually hear from a very successful fintech entrepreneur, Jayjeet. Jayjeet, Bharat ZipPass aims to replace physical hardware-based point of sale with a soft POS, essentially a smartphone. When such a disruptive idea is presented to investors, what kind of feedback did you receive?
Mahesh, first let me thank you for inviting me to this panel and also being an investor in my company, along with IN of Padmaja, that's led by Padmaja. We are very thankful for that. The job of a VC, essentially, if I understand it correctly, is to be able to invest in high-risk ventures, which is why you have a separate category of investors. With that mandate, it is important for the VCs to first figure out what are the risks involved. And therefore, the feedback we got was essentially around risk. The usual feedback that I would get is, if this is so disruptive, why hasn't somebody else done it? And if it is so, if it can become so successful, what about the existing players? Why can't they replicate it? If they have lots of money and people in, so they can go ahead and replicate it. So why your intervention is needed? And related to that, the other questions would be that typically venture capitalists would have invested in entities which will end up disrupting. So it becomes a bit of a conflict of interest that there is already an investment in certain fintech companies, which a new entity is coming in saying, well, we propose to disrupt those. And that becomes quite conflicting. And those are the complex questions and ecosystem questions that come up. Also, the next set of questions that come up is, well, if it's disruptive, what will be the operational model? Because we have come out with a technology model, and we have a view that that technology model is going to lead to a new business model. But how will you really touch the dots? How will you put the dots together? How will you put up an operational model which will really take you from the technology to the business? And what about the regulatory models? Are you really going to be within the existing regulatory framework, or are you going to bust some of the regulatory envelopes that are there? Will you be crossing the line? Will you be in the gray area? And frankly, all of those questions are very pertinent. At the end of the day, it's a fitment from the VC's perspective, given the environment and the set of entities that they're working with, and their ability to see whether this technology and the disruption will actually work or not work. Because frankly, Mahesh, there are many disruptions that actually don't end up working, right? And then there are disruptions which are in your face, and there are competitors who don't get into the market. I mean, I think a great example is the Tesla electric vehicle. Everybody knew that electric vehicles is going to happen, but the entrenched players did not get into it. It was Tesla which got into it in a big way.
Right.
And I think that's the kind of questioning that really happens when you come up with something disruptive. And as Padmaja actually said, it depends on the ability to also execute, right? And that faith has to be there.
Absolutely. It's a great insight, Jaijit. I have a follow-on question on this. This might be very useful for the aspiring and fintech startups who are actually listening to this. So Xeron is a fintech funded by marquee investors, multiple angel investment networks like the Chennai Angels, IAN, and IAN Fund as well. And you also have a great team and advisory board. I'm sure a lot of hard work has gone behind this. What was the magic, if I may ask, you had to make this happen? What could fintech startups learn from you, follow your footsteps?
I think from a team perspective and the advisory board, I was fortunate to have been working, for quite some time before I started off. And so I had, worked deeply with most of my advisory board members, in fact, all of them. And that helped in them just, sharing the same vision that I brought in. But along with it, I think one of the key points is to make sure that one has an idea that is scalable. Nobody would like to be associated with ideas which have very limited impact, not just from a financial perspective or returns perspective, but having a contribution to a masterpiece being created in that sense as a legacy. And so unless there is a large impact that we are moving forward to, it would not interest too many people. And therefore, having a scalability of whatever idea one brings in is extremely important. The second is the ability to bring in focus. Mahesh, I might be saying this, and everybody would have heard it, so there's nothing new that I'm talking about. These are things people know. But when you go through the process, it's a different kind of learning that you get. There are many learnings that you have when you are a child. But as when you grow up, you start appreciating those learnings. And therefore, I'll be saying the obvious, but when it comes at the right moment, it helps. So bringing in focus, and it's very easy to get distracted because mind is a very distracting thing. And venture capitalism is about the ideas and the mind. It's very easy to get distracted and say, I'll build 20 different things. Our core technology is applicable across multiple segments, be it fintech, be it regtech, be it food. We have applications in multiple areas. But if we let the mind go astray and start thinking about too many things, that becomes very unconvincing in that sense. And it's also detrimental to whatever venture that you're looking at. And third is the ability to execute. It is important for the stakeholders to see that they are in a venture where there is an execution that is going to happen rather than intellectual venture capitalism. It has to be something on the ground, something tangible, and there is need to put in the horsepower behind to take baby steps and get them executed on a daily basis. And that's what the team, the stakeholders, advisory board, the venture capitalists, everybody wants to look forward to that. Look at it from the employee perspective. Why are they joining a high-risk startup? They can get a cushy job in a large company. So it's our duty to also make sure that they get the excitement for which they join a startup, that they get to see and make the impact that they have, they're looking forward to. And that's why they were motivated to join a startup. So those are the three key points, Mahesh, that I would like to share, which is one, getting the scalability in, second, getting the focus, and third, the ability to execute.
Fantastic. Very, very pragmatic and coming from horse's mouth, so to speak. Thank you so much, Jayjeet, for that. And let me now focus my question to the investors. Prem, you have a license to operate in US, UK, and India. And what is your word of advice to aspiring entrepreneurs who are seeking to raise funds in general and fintech startups in particular? I would like actually Padmaja to also give some perspective on this, followed by Prem first.
I think the answer to this question could have been slightly different before COVID, but now it's different, I think. See, what the pandemic has taught us is we are living in a new norm where it's all about digitally global and globally neutral. When I say digitally global, we were literally talking about before this chat. We were chatting on the side along with myself and Jayjeet, which is how his own solution could be applied to the Western world as well, which is exactly what we were trying to. So basically, all the customers that they are catering to, they're just on a natural, neutral platform. So that's number one. On the other side, on the consumer side, consumers are becoming neutral in terms of the products and services who they want to procure from, because the consumers are from the globe, which means they don't really care who the provider is. So we're living in a digitally global and a globally neutral world, right? So as such, what founders and entrepreneurs need to think about is how are they going to offer their products and services catering to this new world where scalability digitally is not a big problem, which has quite very well been evidenced by the pandemic. So that's number one. Number two is profitability as opposed to valuation, right? What we anticipate is going forward in the next 6 months to 12 months and 24, there'll be a heavy focus on profitability of our portfolio companies and outside as well. And I think we'll have a very keen focus on the timeline by which our potential investee companies, our existing portfolio, will also become profitable. So I think founders should be considering options or having a very keen eye to make their companies profitable. And the third thing is for early stage companies, irrespective of where they are from, our recommendation will be do their homework on the legal structuring of a particular investment. It's very important because understanding the legal process will allow them to quickly understand and appreciate where investors are coming from and why they are coming from. And that allows for a quicker closure of the overall deal and getting the business forward.
Wonderful. Thank you. Padmaja, what's your perspective?
I actually just wanted to step back, Mahesh, is to add to what Jayjeet said. Very clearly, to build a business, there are two major resources required. Number one is talent, and number two is funds. It is the entrepreneurs who bring in that talent, if I may say so, kick-ass talent. They know the domain, they understand the space, they focus on building it up. Investors bring in the funds, and that is what is a complementary partnership between an investor and an entrepreneur, and together they can clearly build value. Number 2 point, which I think Jayjeet went into some detail, I really want to say what investors look for. They look for a class A team, even if it has a class B idea. A class A idea with a class B team does not work. The reason for this is the bet investors make are on those 2 or 3 co-founders. And therefore, to borrow from Vidya Balan, I would say that entrepreneurs need to focus on execution, execution, execution. There is nothing more important than that to build a company. So I just wanted to add to that. The question that you asked of me, Mahesh, is what advice do I give to aspiring entrepreneurs? I think, folks, first of all, if you are aspiring to be an entrepreneur, it's a great thing, okay? But what is important for you to understand that the career path that you've chosen to build a startup or to get going on a venture is the highest risk and the most difficult. So number one point I would like to advise entrepreneurs, please be absolutely clear in your minds that this is what you want to do. It is an all-consuming career path that you have chosen. You have chosen the most difficult, the most risky, the most all-consuming. You will be absolutely have to be self-motivated. You will have to understand that you will have no life, honestly. I mean, I don't think anybody says this, but I am to say that work-life balance almost write it off, okay? So that's number one. Number two, you will face crisis. You will face hurdles. You will face problems. And it is only you and your motivation that not only keeps you going, but many times you will need to keep your co-founders going, your team going, you'll have to handle your customers, your vendors on high TRPs all the time. Okay, you have to be really a sales leader because you will have to, in some ways, sell to your co-founder. You'll have to tell him it's okay. Let's pick ourselves up and get going. You will have to obviously sell to customers that yes, we don't have a track record, but we are the best thing after God's, after God, to solve your solution. You will have to speak to your team and when you recruit to say, yes, of course I can't pay you what you expect or what are your market salaries, but listen, you're going to be joining what is going to be $1 billion company. So I can pay you a little bit of cash, but I can give you shares, and those shares will convert into a very valuable package for you. So you are selling to him, you're selling a promise, you're selling you're selling, right? Third is you will also be selling to your suppliers, right? To say, please give me whatever I need, but I know you get 30 days credit, but I'm going to please give me 60 days credit because we're building a long-term relationship and you are partnering with $1 billion company. So you're selling. Believe me, folks, believe me, even in my life, I do this and I'm sharing it. You're selling to your spouse, you're selling to your children, you're selling to your family. You are selling to say that, listen, why don't you get going? I will to the movies. I'll come. I'll just do one meeting and come. I'll just swing by the office and come. I'm doing this for you. So you're selling all the time. So only if you are ready to sell 24/7, 365 days for the next 5 years, do not become an aspiring entrepreneur. I would put it like that. Number two is the question that Mahesh asked, is what would you look for in fintech space? See, very clearly what works is not to emulate. Startups which are just getting going, if you do a copy of another big company, it's not going to work. You don't have the ability, you don't have the reach, you don't have the cash resources, etc. So you have to, by definition, look for some innovation. By definition, you have to look for some disruptive model or disruptive solution, and yet solve the problem that you're trying to solve. So innovation, number one, is very critical. Luckily, in the fintech space, there are so many, the growth and the swivels are happening so fast that the number of opportunities that are emerging are humongous. We have started with Paytm, we have started with Paytech, we have started with large loan giving companies. That's why we have quote unquote these loan apps. We have looked at crypto, all of these. But honestly, there are many more that have opened up. If you look at insurance tech, companies like Artivatic. If you look at focused insurance, like we have done in a company in the US, which is focused on insuring against tornadoes in Florida, for example, which is which is a very tornado hit part of the world, part of the country. If you look at reg tech, regulatory tech, it's opening up. There are lots of companies. Also, there's a huge opportunity that if you come up with a tech innovation, the large companies, there's an acquisition play. So, try and pick the gaps and build a company there. If you look at wealth tech, if you look at escrows, if you look at foreign exchange, all of these are disruptive. And more importantly, these are in some ways silos, right? I think what is important to understand that there are horizontals that have emerged. If you look at demonetization, there was a push to go digital. But with last year's COVID and pandemic, etc., there is a pull to go digital. And this means that the market size has suddenly expanded. When all of us in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 were going digital, tier 4 and tier 5 were lagging behind. But with the lockdown and all the problems that it created, it has opened up a new market. It has opened up new opportunities. So there is very, very clearly an opportunity for many of you to cater to that market, be it with simple models of MFI, which you disrupt, or also how do you cater to different languages, different cultures, different vernacular. I mean, if you look at a company that we've invested in vernacular, they're actually catering to bringing in the Bharat users onto the team. So I think there is a huge opportunity there. But what I would also want to bring to your notice is that, India is emerging into an M&A space. So if you create propositions, look for a gap in the value chain of large companies and say, here is a gap, let me build a proposition here, let me prove it, let me monetize it, let me make sure it integrates with the larger ecosystem. You could create some very, very interesting tech, which will then give you an acquisition play. In fact, Israel does that. Israel looks at Microsoft, for example, and says, this is their product suite and this is the gap and I'm going to innovate for that. And then they are so sharply focused on that gap and building for that space, they just get acquired. So I think that thinking is also very important as you build your ventures in the fintech space, which is not only growing, but I would say vertically, but also horizontally. So I think that's the new piece.
So Prem, you have actually been watching the global investment trend across the world. What kind of insights can you share about the trends in the new normal world for the companies that are actually getting investments and more on the fintech side?
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. So from the trends perspective, I mean, Padmaja was earlier alluding to the elements of fintech and how it is unearthed and wealth and advisory and so on and so forth. Particularly for me, we need to balance out the technology innovation with what is happening in the market. One is keen to appreciate the fact that there's been a heavy hit on the mortgage and real estates and so on and so forth. So, and that kind of causing much of stress on the balance sheet and much of stress on the consumer or the commercial estates and so on and so forth. So I personally believe that we will see this in the next couple of years. We'll see a lot more of such companies trying to address such stress testing in the market and how we can address that from a fintech space. At the same time, what has also been positive in the last year is the evolution of crypto as a big opportunity in the segment. I mean, what started as $6,000, I mean, as of yesterday was $33,000, $34,000, and it's much higher as per the futures, is about $75,000 per Bitcoin. So I think we will see an evolution of, subject to the regulatory changes coming in, evolution of payments being made and much more ease out in conjunction with cash and crypto and so on and so forth. That blend will come in, and I think this will also percolate into other forms of payments as well, which is lending and personal finance and so on and so forth, wherever possible. So that is on that front. And the third element is capital markets. Okay. Again, I still cannot fathom as to how the capital markets could perform so well, especially when the whole pandemic was happening and companies were really making well. So I think these are the three key segments that I think the fintech will drive going forward. I mean, this is in addition to the neo-bankings of this world and so on and so forth. But what this pandemic has also taught us is the creation of a lot more wealthier people from across the world. So that means, and especially in a normalized world and the world being flat, as you will, like a map, people are looking to kind of allocate their wealth across multiple asset classes. So wealth management also becomes a big key thing, but with a multi-geographical focus and multi-asset strategy. I think those are the key elements that I think are the trends of the future of fintech.
Interesting, and thanks for that. If I may ask you, Jaijit, what trends do you see in fintech startups in the post-COVID new normal world, as they say?
I think the two dimensions that I see that there is a development happening is one in the direction of processes.
Mm-hmm.
So the fintech world is being broken up into smaller and smaller processes, and those are getting automated. It kind of reminds me of the time when BPO was a big thing and all processes were being broken down and outsourced. Now that outsource is being taken to a technology instead of a person. And I think that's where one big area of fintech development is happening. And as Padmaja was referring a little while ago, it's happening in the area of escrow, in the area of neo-banking,
mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth, in a plethora of areas, including even things like trusteeship.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having a human trustee, can we have an automated third-party trustee doing the job? And that's actually happening as we speak. The second dimension is in the dimension of technology, where one of the key things that we obviously see is an increasing adoption of the NFC ecosystem. The second is cryptography, specifically the part that Prem was mentioning about cryptocurrencies, but not just in currencies. It's in everything. It's in stocks, it's in agreements, and so on and so forth. Crypto and blockchain go hand in hand, so I'll not repeat that. But clearly, there is a lot of development happening in that direction. And then there is development happening in terms of a non-repeatable third-party local language support for finance. That may not be happening in the Western world because that's very much homogenized. But in places like India, Indonesia, Africa, and so on, there is a need for a local language support for financial transactions, both in terms of voice, chat, and agreements being in those areas. And I see a lot of my startup colleagues getting into that area. So essentially, Mahesh, there is two directions. There's in terms of process, there's a lot of innovations happening and startups are going in that direction. And second is in terms of technology. The other interesting point that I see is where startups are mashing up multiple technologies and creating something which is much more powerful than each of those individual ones. I think that's going to be the next big trend. And those mashed up technologies are going to solve far more complex problems than what those individual technologies were solving.
Padmaja, if I may ask, what trends do you see in the funding in the new normal world in general and fintechs in particular?
Look, I think funding good businesses built on solid foundations will attract money. Let me give you one other perspective. The fact is, the business of investors is to invest and get returns. They are not going to close down their business, correct? So you will be able to get money. But I think what is required is companies with a solid foundation, which means that they have a growing top line and a focus on bottom line. We completely, as investors, understand that you will not have a profitable startup. I mean, it's not possible. We understand that. But do you have a path to profitability? Do you have a focus on profitability? Do you have a focus on EBITDA? Which means that do you have unit economics? Do you look at ARPU economics? Are you looking at the way your customer acquisition costs? Are you looking at your spend? What is your capital efficiency? All of those build a strong foundation. But I think the cement to the foundation, again, is the entrepreneur. It is the entrepreneur who actually builds a cement, right? And makes sure that irrespective of anything, I will go and build this business. I'm determined. Whether anybody invests or not, maybe the growth is slower, but I will. Persistence and determination is what is the cementing factor. And if you are building a business with those factors in mind, with that determination, with that focus on building a strong foundation team, believe me, you will not need to go fundraising. Investors will chase you. And I think for an entrepreneur, that's the best space to be in. And finally, I think what is very important, funding is not the be all and end all of life. Please, it is, if you get funds, if you're able to raise funds, excellent, no doubt, okay? But what is even par excellence is that you build a company on your own revenues. Prove your point, prove your product, prove that the customer is buying, build as much as you can. The best way of funding a company is through revenues. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Build solid companies. Funds will not be an issue if you are focused on building a sustainable, scalable, and a solid company. So, friends, please look for the gap. Build an innovative, differentiated model which allows customers to do something different or differently. Please focus on execution, and then build a company with determination that you're going to build a solid company with a top line and a bottom line, which allows it to become a valuation based? No, valuable company. And I think that's important. So on that point, Mahesh, I will stop and thank you very much.
Wonderful. That's fantastic to know. Thank you once again, Padmaja, Jaijit, Prem, for sharing your insight. I get a positive vibe that funds will be available for fintechs with the right business model enabled by technology, supported by regulatory framework that could fundamentally disrupt the way business are being carried out. Again, on behalf of FinBlue, FinTech Center of Excellence, and TAI, I thank you for your participation, and we look forward to having another session in the future soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mahesh. Thanks, Ajay. Thanks, Vidya.
Thank you, Prem. Thank you, Padmaja. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much to all our speakers for such an elaborate and informative session on fintech funding. For our last session of the day, we discussed the nitty-gritties of VC funding for fintech startups. Joining us for a keynote session is Mr. Vishesh Rajaram, Managing Partner at Speciale Invest. Mr. Rajaram has over 10 years of investing experience across enterprise technologies and consumer services. He has been actively involved across the life cycle of venture capital investing, from deal sourcing, building networks, investing, monitoring and creating value, and exit engineering. Following his keynote speech, Mr. Rajaram will be in conversation with Mr. Arun Natarajan, founder of Venture Intelligence. Venture Intelligence is India's longest-serving provider of news and information on private company financials, transactions, and their valuations. Mr. Natarajan is also a member of the Governing Council of STPI-Chennai. It is our pleasure to host both Mr. Rajaram and Mr. Natarajan to unpack VC funding for fintech startups.
Welcome to FinTERACT 2021, a virtual conference by FinBlue, a fintech center of excellence set up by the Software Technology Parks of India. FinBlue is an initiative to provide resources such as mentoring, technology support, and funding for fintech startups. Naturally, the next stage for startups that emerge from such a program is to scale up, and that is where venture capital comes in. As one of the most thoughtful investors in the Indian startup ecosystem, I look forward to hearing from Vishesh Rajaram, Managing Partner of Speciale Invest, on the topic venture capital funding in the new normal. And post his short talk, we will have a follow-up interaction. Over to you, Vishesh.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you so much for having me here today to share my learnings and my views of what's really transpired in the last 12 months and what the outlook is going forward. And before I start, I'd take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the firm. I'm one of the two co-founders at Special Invest. We're a seed stage fund. We typically invest about $500,000 in check sizes. We invest in companies that have vintage of less than a few hundred days old, typically companies that are pre-revenue or pre-product market fit, or even in an idea stage. In terms of our focus, we're largely focused on two broad categories. One is enterprise software, where we particularly look for companies that are building software products out of India for global markets, primarily North America and Europe. And the other category we look for within enterprise software is building tools and products for the large 20 million plus developer ecosystem that's there all over the world. The other large category where we invest a lot of time learning and investing is frontier tech hardware, where we largely look at broad categories such as opportunities in space, opportunity in additive manufacturing, opportunity in batteries, opportunities in climate tech. And these are essentially building technologies of the future. These are building technologies that are more relevant now that didn't exist before. So that's largely the focus. We have about $40 million across two funds or two vehicles that we're investing out of. We've done about a dozen investments. It's almost 50-50 between enterprise software and industrial hardware in terms of focus of what we've done. If anybody wants to reach us, our website has email IDs and coordinates for you to write to us. We strive hard to write to every email that comes in our way. In terms of just the question that's on our minds on, hey, what the outlook for venture capital or what the outlook for startups is going forward in the new normal, I think a good starting point is to rewind 12 months back and really see what transpired, right? And the last 12 months have essentially been accelerated learning for all of us. Every time an event like this comes, we essentially go back, look at historical data, look at what's happened back then, and try and accommodate or accustom ourselves to data around that. And it's surprising to note that the last 12 months has been unbelievably different. You saw listed markets go through an all-time fall, and now you're seeing them at an all-time high, all within a 12-month period, right? So I remember this. I was interviewed by, I think, one of the big, one of the magazines in March, April of 2020, and the view I had back then was there is going to be a flight to quality, which means investors will do fewer deals. Investors will put more money in the few high quality companies. And I think the view I had at that point of time was that early stage investment will possibly drop significantly. And that view essentially came from looking at what happened in the year 2008, 2010, when we had the financial crisis. And to a large extent, I think till about June or July, that's what played out, right? Most VCs were essentially looking at their portfolio, including ourselves, to essentially do impact assessment, planning, rejigging, recalibrating, and making sure that there's enough money for the existing portfolio. But the big difference between 2008 and 2020 was that the underlying economic factors of financial markets didn't take a big beating. There was still a lot of dry powder in the VC community. The financial markets still had a lot of liquidity. The fiscals did not take a big beating. And as a result, I think the later part of the last year saw a fairly quick and unexpected rebound, just given people's ability to have liquidity to come back and do transactions. And I think the later part of 2020, one possibly saw transactions back to earlier levels. and VCs had a lot more dry powder out, and people started realizing that this may be good times to start building companies in the new normal, because now you have new trends. There is a change in consumer behavior, there's a change in corporate behavior, there's a change in human behavior, and that therefore creates an opportunity to go and build out new companies or new businesses that didn't exist before or didn't have a need to exist before, right? And along those lines, you've seen a lot more transactions that have then picked up, and I think Jan's also been a good month in terms of just the number of transactions we're reading of other VCs doing, and so on and so forth. I think particularly commenting on what's in the new normal, a lot of this is very much based on just how consumer behavior is in this year, right? And there is, of course, there is a vaccine that's coming out, and people will wait and watch through Q1 on how it's being rolled out and its efficacy of it. And I think that will have a great underpinning on how some of the real world businesses, physical businesses will play their growth out. And that also has a very direct implication on how some of these more new normal online businesses, primarily around education, around remote work and remote management, all will also play out. As a betting man, my guess is some of what we do on a normal day-to-day will go back to old ways, but I think a large piece of how most of us will run life will be possibly different from how we ran before. Speaking for myself, I used to sort of straddle two cities. I spent half the week in Bangalore and half the week in Chennai. Now I spend the entire week in front of Zoom. Am I going to be living life drastically different 6-9 months from now? Unlikely. I think the world is now starting to accept that you don't need to be physically there for all meetings or for all activities, and there is a good chunk of the world that will continue to operate in the new normal, and a good chunk of these new businesses that have now come into existence in the last 6 to 12 months will continue to thrive, and I think that's where the future lies. The other element on specifically what we look out for, right? I mean, we do a reasonable part of our fund to sort of back technologies of the future, technologies that didn't exist before. So I think climate tech is going to be big. It's very nice to note that the number one or the number two richest man in the world today has got businesses that's helping human beings buy more time on Earth. And I think that's the future. Buying more time on Earth and living longer, and opportunities coming out of that is what's going to buy more wealth or create more wealth. And that will also see some acceleration than ever before. And we're quite excited because we've got a few investments in some of those adjacent areas, and we're excited going forward.
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic overview of how things have changed and how things have not changed as well, right? So some fundamentals are going to remain. Very excited. Given that the theme for this conference is specifically on fintech, it's like you said, been a very interesting year, especially in the second half of the year. Things changed quite a bit, on the funding side of things. So much so that fintech, if you take overall venture capital, was the second most favorite among investors. This includes even growth investors after e-commerce, right? So it's an obvious beneficiary because of all the pandemic and so on. And then you had if you slice the early stage, which is like your less than 5-year-old companies receiving less than, let's say, $5-10 million, even there fintech followed SaaS as the second favorite sector for early stage investors, including Specially and others like yourself, right? So what do you see? Obviously fintech, starting with Paytm, has been around gathering momentum even before the pandemic. What do you think has changed in the landscape that specifically attracted investors like yourselves, or maybe even in general, to the fintech space?
So I think firstly, financial services before it became fintech is a very large business with a large market. And with a population size such as ours, it's possibly, you know, one of the more integral parts of the economy, and hence is always a growing market, right? And financial technology is an extension of financial services that allows you to do things very differently, collect data on customers, access customers more simply, and provide ease of convenience and access, right? And that's what largely fintech is. So I think it's clearly its growth possibly for the next many years is going to be phenomenal, very high, and at some point may even exceed or shadow e-commerce. Just given that it's got, you know, there's a B2B aspect to it. It's got about how enterprises are getting finance. It's got about how consumers are using finance, and just how large a consumption economy we are now becoming, or at least the metros are becoming. These are going to be very large pockets and very large markets, and we will continue to see money being pumped or money being invested in these categories, right? What's also interesting to see is you have insurance also coming in under the category of financial services. Insurance penetration continues to be a very small percentage as a percentage of the population. And again, the insurance inclusion, just like how financial inclusion, those are opportunities to then sort of go out and build in different shapes and forms. I think the base level of financial tech is going to be just getting access. And then you start curating and cutting and making new products and giving new offerings once access itself is solved. And fintech, I think the access problem is largely opened up, and now you're going to be looking at interesting opportunities in giving new products and new services, segmenting customers to seeing what each one wants, and slowly and steadily evolving to mass customization, which means you open your banking app, it's going to be looking very differently to you. If my son opens it, it'll be very different for him vis-a-vis what it is for me.
Absolutely, very interesting. And in some of your own portfolio companies, you know, you have what, 11 to 13 of them announced formally. Is there a fintech flavor to any of them, you know, including as users, you know, are banks, for example, customers of some of them? Is there anything that you saw changing during 2020 with those?
In full honesty, we've looked at a few companies, came very close to investing, but for various reasons didn't go ahead. So we don't have anything in the active portfolio that's got a financial technology underlying to it. But that's a sector where we've got a lot of anti-portfolios.
Okay.
That's a sector that we continue to look at quite actively, just noting how well some of the anti-portfolios have done. So I'm very self-reflective on this sector.
No. So if you can actually name some names, if not, you know, that at least give us what would you have liked to invest
about it. And there's a pun intended there. Our biggest anti-portfolio in fintech is the Open Bank company. We looked at them when they just closed their pre-seed or their angel round, and we came very close to completing the transaction, and it didn't happen. And we're very happy on how they've done. And we thought that they had a very interesting way to solve a problem for new age businesses back then when they just started. And clearly they've evolved and grown phenomenally well from just that, you know, one single pain point that they were looking at back then to how they've now an open bank as I see them. And that's one where the need or the problem statement they were going after was new, was unconventional, and was essentially going after these newer businesses that have small transactions and large number of small transactions, right? And a traditional bank and the traditional bank's model didn't necessarily tune or build itself for that. A bank software was built for the bank, right? It was not built for the customer. But today, we're now evolving ourselves to saying, hey, how can I build the bank software that's capturing the fundamentals of what's needed for the bank, but also makes it simple for the customer. And I think Open started with that fundamental aim and has now phenomenally grown and will continue to be one of our top quartile anti-portfolios.
Interesting. So given, Speciali's clear focused approach, right? So what kind of, fintech companies do you think, should approach you? Is there a core IP that you require? So you gave the example of Open, but, if any other companies, is there a point where you feel that the IP is not enough and therefore, it doesn't fit your thesis? Or is there something else? So what kind of broadly fintech companies should look at Speciali?
So our definition of IP is essentially a combination of founder insights and or market insights and or technology or engineering insights. And this collective allows you to do something which is hard for others to catch up, right? And those are the kind of companies that we like. Clearly, if you looked at Open, the founders' insights of that particular pain point and their engineering capability to go build a complex solution that interfaces into traditional core banking modules and function was quite phenomenal. And that's, while that's not IP in the traditional sense, it's very much IP in the way I look at how Speciali looks at investing, right? At the same time, we're a seed fund, we invest in seed. So we're reasonably cognizant of our ability to participate in size in multiple rounds, and hence we're wary of businesses that need large chunks of money to go build an NBFC, right? So if you're in the lending side, clearly we're not the best partners. But if you're on the software product or the software tool side or the sandbox side or the API side, then it just makes a lot of sense for us, because we fundamentally believe in going and building a product that can be sold multiple times at high gross margins. Those are learnings we've had from our SaaS businesses, right? Or from our hardware businesses. Build once, go sell multiple times, get insights, go build, scale up from there. So those kind of businesses, I think we may be a good fit, and would always love to talk to entrepreneurs building those.
Fantastic. Given that FinBlue is taking off, what would you think are the kind of polishing that incubator, accelerator like FinBlue can do by the time they reach out to a fund like Speciali? So in your experience in working with other accelerators and so on, what do you think can be the value add from those folks to help make those better polished startups when by the time they reach you?
I think by the time you typically are reaching a pre-seed or a seed fund, the investor wants to learn what is the insight coming out of this business, right? And like I bucketed them, I think it'll be great in the storytelling for investors to hear what is the founder's unique insight. What do they know about this business, which is unique past experience, right? What I think of it as founder market fit. Then what's interesting is, particular to this fintech business, hey, in this limited time that you've possibly built the product or launched the product, what have you learned from the customer? What is the need? What is the pain point that is there? And is there some evidence of that pain point that you can display to investor? And if you've actually launched the product, the proof is finally in customer adoption, right? And of course, each one has a view on what is scale and what is traction and all of those words. But at the base level, I just want to know what is the insight for this business to be built or this product to be built, and what is the proof point for it. And if there's a way to channelize that, I think that's great. Because the metrics are in, it's each one to their flavor, right? I mean, if I'm pre-seed, then I'm okay with something if I'm seed. So it's hard to put the number, but it's very useful to just, for someone to simply say, hey, I'm building this because this is what I know. This is quite unique to me because this is my past. And these are the customers who've told me this, and here are the proof points.
So, clearly FinTech has been one of the sectors, with tailwind thanks to the pandemic, like we discussed. But when we're talking about a vaccine now, and when it comes to education, back to school and all of that. So we saw this during demonetization also briefly, right? So there is a very heavy impact event, and then people go back to what they were doing earlier. And Peter said that a lot of cash is back, post demon. So people say that once schools are open, a lot of the edtech, which is the flavor of town, might kind of come down a bit. So do you see on the financial technology side any impact of back to normal, being, for example, a negative for the sector? Is there something is it permanent, semi-permanent? Do you see something that entrepreneurs should watch out for without overextending, for example?
So fintech has many facets to it, right? There's a lending facet to it, which I think people are already treading with caution, because you need to understand who you're lending to, what customer profiles, and what they're underpinning and under finances, and so on and so forth. And that's that's a complicated territory to operate. Some areas are fine, some areas are not. And I think people will generally be watchful, and to some extent the macros have their impacts on it, right? And I think depending on the vaccine and depending on when retail or physical retail opens up and so on and so forth, a large piece of that will have its impact in a positive way, hopefully. I think the worst is possibly over for them in a positive way. Now, there is the other side of it, where you've got all these people who have money or who have liquidity or whose jobs are stable, who are now having the advantage of accessing financial services sitting where they are, be it home or office, right? And they are unlikely to go back to the old way of doing things, because they've gotten used to a way that's operating for them, and that's working fine. Now, that's still a very small number, and that's a growing number. I don't think we've come where 90% of the population is using, and are we worried about losing 30 of the 90, right? We're still a very small number and only growing. So accessing all of that, I think it will continue to, I'm speaking largely for myself, right? And I'd like to assume that it's going to continue to be the new normal. And people don't necessarily want to meet a lot of people before they make certain decisions on investing in small numbers or even borrowing or even opening an account. I think people would want to just do it sitting where they are. Less because of the worry of COVID, more because I think they just enjoy the convenience that has come out of it, right? It's like, what did e-commerce really do? E-commerce just allowed you to sit where you are and shop. And pre and post-COVID, people do that. The guys who did pre-COVID do it post-COVID, right? Or during COVID. And that's not going to change, because that's just giving you a new convenience of how you use your time and what you do with, irrespective of where you are. And that's not going to change.
Fair enough. If your bottled water guy takes 40 rupees on GPay, and he has no cost, why would he go back to cash, and why would we hunt around for the 20 bucks, 40 bucks, whatever, right? So yeah, very well put. Interesting. From an investor perspective, if you look at financial services and then, look at it from an exit, at the end of the day, venture capital is a business, of exiting. We've seen a lot of unicorns get established in the fintech space, obviously starting with Paytm. And, in terms of exits, we have strategic investors acquiring companies in the payment space largely, right? Citrus, Paysends, you had Freecharge, and you had Quicksilver. All of them either got acquired by, other larger fintech companies, or, they had their stakes acquired by private equity and so on. So broadly speaking, from an exit standpoint, fintech seems to be in a good spot, a lot of big, players there. When it comes to earlier stage, and you touched upon InsurTech, for example, we don't have too many exits. Policy Bazaar has started to grow big and so on. They have some secondary exits. Where are you kind of thinking that beyond payments broadly, and then within exits, opportunities, that investors would look at?
So I'll take the exits part first, and then I'll come back to opportunities to invest, right? I think the one exit that we've historically seen less in startups is public markets. Because traditionally, public markets have looked for stability, vintage, and cash flow. And traditional finance also supports that line of thinking, that you have cash flow, you have positive cash flow, and you support. But I think with the way some of the other markets, specifically the Western markets, operate, where there is a view, there's a stability in growth, and there is clarity that at a certain scale, the free cash flows make up for the short to medium term burns. Those kind of companies can possibly access public markets. And there have been conversations specific to the Indian markets being reflective to allow for some of these flexibilities and allow for some of these grown-up startups to go out and list. And I think that will be interesting because there is an increasing percentage of retail investors that also understand tech and the newer businesses that may not be making money in the short term, that may have the potential, right? And I think that's an unaccessed market. And I'd like to believe that's growing and large. And that could be something we haven't seen, and that may just play out very well. As far as opportunities in fintech, like I sort of qualified upfront, we look for products that can be used repeatedly, that gives you margins. We're cognizant that fintech is a spread business, right? If you're lending, you're borrowing from somebody in lending, or you're getting deposits in lending, and hence it's a spread business. So we know that largely the margins are not huge, and hence at volumes it makes sense. So I think we are excited about opportunities now around investing, brokerages, exchanges. Some of those look interesting because that's doing what it did to just accessing banking before, now accessing markets to people. And the retail audience is increasingly becoming more affluent, more aware, more informed. And I think a lot more people will look at these avenues for creating wealth in the medium term. And that's an area that we sort of continue to look out for. We're also seeing a trend wherein population wants to be truly global and hence wants to access opportunities not only here but all over. And then technology products that allows you to access financial products in different parts of the world is also looking to be very interesting and large. That's particularly an area that we're spending time at to understand the frameworks on the regulation side, on the consumer patterns, to see if there are opportunities to go and build out.
Reading between the lines, from what you've just said, if you slice the, let's say, a company should potentially be able to IPO in the domestic markets is a nice scenario to have. Is there a B2B versus B2C flavor, when it comes to potential IPOs, right? So unit economics are going to be crucial in Indian markets, especially don't support, like you said, too much negative cash flows and so on. But is there an advantage, therefore, automatically that we will see more, domestic exits and IPOs included coming from the B2B side, or not necessary?
I think in the short term, the B2B side has a better chance, right? If you look at BillDesk, for example, a large company, cash flow positive, grown very frugally, very steadily from when they started, right? And those companies are prime for IPOs if they do go that direction. But the advantage B2C brings always is just scale and market opportunity, right? So I wouldn't rule that out. Conservative wisdom and historical trends may not be batting for it. But now that we're talking new normal, there's a great chance that some of those may come because the scale at which they operate is quite large. And sometimes when you cross the tipping scale, free cash flows start coming in.
Very interesting. One of the key developments, 2020, was, the India-China equation, so we saw a lot of, the last 5 years, a lot of Chinese investors come and become follow-on investors to early stage investors like yourselves. Now that has almost gone away. We don't know how that will change. But the reality is that we have gotten relinked to the US in that sense. So the pre-placements for the Chinese investors, are typically the follow-on. Bigger guys have become the US all over again. So what do you think about, your reading of this geopolitical scenario, relinking to the US versus losing some of these Chinese investors? So what is your reading of this whole, US-China equation?
So it's complicated if I get into the details. I think there is going to be an increasing push for everybody to aim for localization, and that's coming out of desire for higher level of self-security of where the information sits, who's doing what. Just the fear of the unknown of who can do what with it will force people to think a little inward for good reasons, I would think. Right? And that will play out in many aspects, especially if it's involving consumers of India, which essentially means the underlying data of what consumers do with it. Where is my house? Where's my office? Where am I going every day? What am I doing? Where am I spending? All very important information. Right? So I think there will be some sensitivity to it attached to just the security that it carries along with it. And I think for good reasons, the way we are approaching it is possibly appropriate for the time and era we are in right now. And as for capital is concerned, people with wealth have to create more wealth. Number one. Number two, certain geographies will continue to grow and expand. The GDP numbers matters less. To me, the relative growth of one's own country vis-a-vis other country matters more, right? So if there's wealth sitting in some part of the world that needs to grow, India clearly has an allocation, right? And I think that's all we need to look at to make sure that we get the right partners, right allocation, and go out and build wealth. And create value in India as well, jobs, taxes, infrastructure, all of that. And as long as that's being done, I think we should be fine.
Interesting. So, speaking of 2020, we really can't escape, the geo phenomenon, right? So, given including once they're done with their massive fundraisers, they went out and acquired some startups, Urban Ladder, NetMeds, and so on. What is your take on what geo's moves are, and what should VCs and entrepreneurs, do to factor in this, phenomenon?
Great question. I'm almost thinking twice on how to answer that. But I think if I were to summarize it in a very simple form, VCs and founders have to be very realistic of staying power, unit economics, and ability to spend capital to build businesses that at least turn profitable sooner than before. Because the same customer, the same trend, you've got now a very large balance sheet investor who has more operating experience and more understanding of India than most other people. So whatever you do, you do it being more realistic. That's my suggestion. Of course, we have very little experience on the consumer side, so I'm cognizant of that as well. But stepping back and noting that they're going after some of these big opportunities in kirana, in retail, in fashion, in education, and all of that, I think one has to be cautious in how they build these companies if you're a startup with less capital.
Interestingly, fintech is not yet a space that they have done any big move in. So that's probably something that's to be kept in mind by this audience.
I don't know enough to comment.
Fair enough. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about 2020 was that angel investments and hit a 5-year high. So something like 340 plus investments by just the angel networks and the super angels as they are called. And and obviously seed funding also had a surge like you talked about at the beginning. That was a bit unexpected. We are in the middle of the pandemic. what were some of the factors that led to the surge, towards the end of the year? And more importantly, do you see it being sustained?
So I think there are many things that have gone into it, right? I've always seen slides such as, hey, in 2009, 10, 11, the companies that started have been the biggest companies now, which clearly meant it was basically rewiring everybody's mind to say it's a great time to start a company, it's a great time to invest in a company, it's a great time to go deploy capital, right? So I'm sure some of that drove it. I'm sure some of the clarity on, these the AIF ones or the funds that, Let's Venture or AngelList or some of them run, that essentially has now made it easy for a solo GP to go put a fund or create a syndicate and go build out, right? And clarity on that, ease of operation on that possibly has also opened up access for more solo GPs to go and build out some of these funds. That's clearly been another driver, I guess. Plus, I think the pandemic also opened up potential for new acceleration or new trends that lots of people could go out and build, right? Be it edutech. Edutech is an obvious one where you had so many of these new opportunities coming out because they know that people are going to be locked in for a certain period of time, and this is a great time to inculcate or build a certain habit. And if that continues, then you have a customer. So some of that, I think all three, a combination of, I don't know if I should call it FOMO, but combination of feeling that this is a great time to go build and create value, regulatory clarity, smoothness in operation, of course, liquidity being there, and newer trends that are now accelerated possibly led to it. Now, will it sustain? Largely everything has to be self-sustaining, which means you have to see some big exits coming out. And you mentioned a few people that have had secondaries and possibly having IPOs, and some of that will put money back in the hands of investors for them to have confidence to come back up. So I'm hoping some of it will continue, whether it's exactly the same numbers, same growth rates. It's anybody's guess, but I think more of this will happen, and it's good for the ecosystem.
Absolutely. One of the things now, it's a bit more clear, like earlier, some of the larger venture firms used to do seed programs and enter into areas that are typically, what used to be angel, now that is probably getting more clarity. So would you agree with that?
Actually, I think the top 5-6 funds are clearly multi-stage. They operate very early stage, they operate late stage, right? And a few funds have actually come out to saying that they have programs, like Axel has his Rebound program, they have a Founder Stack program, Sequoia clearly has Surge. I think IDG recently announced something for Frontier Tech or Deep Tech. So I think everybody is not dismissing the fact that seed is a great time to identify back founders and create value. There is risk, but there is risk in everything in venture, right? So it's illiquid at the end of the day. So I think seed or early stage continues to be a great asset class that's generating value. And I wouldn't be surprised if more funds tend to sort of come and operate in that segment in some way, shape, and form to sort of create that deal flow pipeline to do more of it. And I'm sure there will be more people like us as well emerging that want to do seed-only funds, at least begin to do seed-only funds. And I think there will be some competition or more competition in this category. And then folks like us will, of course, we don't do everything in seed. We do a few specific things in seed. We look for deep tech or we look for frontier tech. And some of us may just continue to operate in just that smaller focus groups or focus areas, if I can call it.
Fair enough. So as we are reached the end of the session, the final question to you is in the form of common mistakes that you've seen in your venture career that startups make, either that could end a company itself or at least end the conversation with a venture firm like you, or rather a deal killer, as I put it. Could you highlight some of those mistakes that entrepreneurs should avoid?
I think the biggest is expectation management. And that expectation management is with the self and with your partner both. Right? And if I were to peel that further, then it goes down into really Do you have the runway? Do you have the cash flow? Are you growing at the right speed? Are you spending the right amount of money? Because largely for most startups, it's about surviving long enough and doing a few things right. If you survive long enough and do a few things right, you'll be fine. But it's a question of surviving, which essentially means, are you burning enough? Are you burning enough for the right metrics? Are you spending enough for the right metrics? Is that allowing you to go get more capital from your partners to continue to grow in a certain direction? And all of that is usually linked to expectation setting, expectation management. And sometimes we're all humans, we all make our own mistakes in either overestimating or underestimating things, or not seeing things clearly. And I think that oftentimes just leads to downfall.
Thank you so much, Vishesh. I think a lot of what you said, applies not just to fintech, but across the board as well. And entrepreneurs would do very well to heed some of this advice. Thanks again. And thanks for the TIE and FinBlue for the opportunity to make this.
Well, that's very humble of you. Thanks for having me and allowing me to share my learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Rajaram and Mr. Natarajan for such an informative deep dive into the VC funding space. And that brings us to the end of day one of FinTERACT 2021, presented to you by FinBlue, a FinTech Center of Excellence by STPI, and ELCOT, adding value through IT. This conference is hosted in partnership with STPI-Chennai. On behalf of the FinTERACT 2021 team, I would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Oasis. I hope the discussions on the importance of partnerships and funding in the sector left you with much to mull over until we meet again tomorrow for more conversation, more idea exchange, and much more to learn. We will see you back again tomorrow evening. Until then, this is Yashaswini signing off on behalf of FinTERACT 2021.